Yeah, we're live. Hi, guys.
One solar guard blocks out harmful UV rays, protecting your home for 25 years.
Freemason talk. And we got an insider here today, guys. We got an insider. He's going to tell us all.
Hey, Diane, good to see you.
And everything. So I'm just they exist. Let's get into it. Your dad. I don't want to spoil anything. So just tell us about your dad and take it away, man.
Yeah. So my dad is. He's a preacher now. He's a pastor. He has been my whole life. So we actually went to seminary, and he met my mom in seminary, and they got married, and they ended up having me and then my sister. So, growing up, my dad would share his testimony at different churching events. He'd normally do it if we came to a new church and he started preaching there. It would be one of the first things that he did, especially when he was an evangelist. That would be one of his first sermons, because he has just amazing, crazy story about how he even got to this point that he was at. Started out college basketball player, got really deep into drugs, the drug scene. He actually was part of a smuggling unit that smuggled like 98% cocaine out of Bogota, Colombia, and biplanes. I don't know if he was necessarily on the biplanes, but he was a part of that kind of culture that was dealing with a lot of that. He dealt with a lot of people that were pretty, as high up as far as who he dealt with. He was a drug user himself. He sold, but it was more of a situation of, they were the higher ups. He was just kind of protected because of them. It's just kind of how he was. He was a partier, though. That's what he grew up in the late 60s, early 70s during that party era of, disco, all that stuff. So, like, for him, that was kind of his lifestyle. And a part of that lifestyle, he met a girl one night. They were partying. At some point the next day, she was leaving, and she looked at him and said, "You know what, Charles, you need to meet God." And so, of course, he cursed her out and told her, "I need to meet God. You need to meet God." Like, what are you talking about? We just did like 10 8-balls, I'm over exaggerating, but probably a lot, So she said, "No, you need to meet God the right way." She's like, "Here's a number. I want you to call me when you're ready." And that's all she said to him, and left. So he said it was really weighing on his mind for a whole week. He just said, I think I need to make this call. I don't know. So finally he picked up the phone and made the call. And this is back way before, we're talking before cell phones and you had caller ID and all that. So none of that existed during this time. He makes the call. There's a man that picks up the phone on the other end. He says, "Hello, Charles. I've been expecting your call." Jeez. So immediately he was kind of freaked out from that because he hadn't said a word yet. And he said, "Yeah." He's like, "So you need to come by." He gave him the address. So you and I were talking about your experience earlier today, and it made me think of this because my dad told the story. So he said he came to the door. As he's walking to the door opens.
What is it with saying this and having doors open by themselves?
I think it often plays into that whole vampire thing. If you ever hear about vampires, it's the allowing of the letting you in thing. It's all tied together. It's all lore, and it's all tied together with everything else. So he walks in. There's a guy standing there. He had a long, flowing white beard, red eyes.
Really?
And he said, "Hello, Charles." He said, "Come inside." So he brings him in. He walks in. He doesn't see the girl that he was with that time. That's actually his wife. So he leaves the room. He said, "Hey, why don't you just sit down here and we'll be back in a little bit."
Okay.
So he sits down in the room and he starts looking around. There's all these beautiful like murals like on the wall, like paintings of like nature and different things like that. So he gets up and starts looking at them, and like at the bottom of them, it's like, "Oh, we praise thee, O Beelzebub, the Most High, Prince of Darkness, we love you." I'm just paraphrasing, but like all of them had stuff underneath it. So he thinks like, this is really weird, because you got to think way he grew up wasn't really in a religious culture like that. His family wasn't really religious like that, per se. And for him, he wasn't. He's like, that's kind of weird. They come back in, and from that moment on, he went on a track for several months to become a legitimate Satanist. They were teaching him the ways of Lucifer. He said he's seen some wild stuff. He said he's seen faces get up off of tables and levitate across the room. They would move stuff with their hands and minds. They had a 3-year-old son that they were training to be the prince of Satan. They could put him in a chair at 3 years old, and he would not move or blink for 3 to 4 hours at a time.
What?
Insane. He's seen this.
Wow.
So during that process, they would talk to him, and other voices would come out of their mouths and tell him things that only he knew about himself from when he was younger. They would have these conversations, these demonic interactions that he would have with these entities. So for him, it looked like power. I mean, you're seeing like, man, these people are moving objects with their minds. I mean, it's like full on, Jedi or Sith in here, moving stuff around, this whole thing. I mean, it's the allure of power, right? I mean, that's kind of what that is. So for him, he got really, zoned into the power aspect. And he said, listen, we're going to go to Texas, where the Church of Satan was the big one there in Texas at the time, down there. So they were like, listen, sell everything you own. Give us some money.
Diane, that's not surprising about Barack Obama's stepdad. The Bushes were CIA.
We're going to get all our money together, pack your bags. We're going to go and leave and go. So he's like, okay, that sounds, good. He's all about it. So he gets all his stuff together. He goes to their house. He, gives the money and everything. And they're like, hey, we need you to go get something. So he's like, okay. So he went to go pick some stuff up. Comes back. Nobody's at the house. Just his 2 bags are sitting on the front porch. And he walks up, and there's a note. And said, we're sorry, Charles. We owe everything to our God. Took all of his money and left. Rolled out on him. I mean, they're Satanists, right?
Wow.
So at that point of his life, he was inside of their house. There was nothing left in that house but a little TV in the house. So he said he had $100 in his pocket. He was going to buy $100 worth of barbiturates and kill himself. He was like, I'm done. Like, I was trying to go down this path. He's like, they even scammed me. He's like, I didn't even know what to do. He ended up turning on the TV just flippantly, like as he's walking out of the house, and there's a voice.
And I bet it's got on the TV.
That tells him, does anyone out there need help? And so he literally turns around, and it's a preacher. And
knew it.
The rest is history. He changed his life.
Really?
I knew that.
So he turns on the TV as he's walking out of the house.
Crazy.
That's random.
Yeah.
And then the preacher the first thing he hears is does anybody out there need help?
Yeah, exactly.
And
he turns around and listens to the rest of what he says, and then ends up just
wow.
The
Changed his
time
life
and
permanently.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Unreal. Listen, I can see it in your face that it gets you emotional when you talk about it. I think it's really cool, man. That is, listen, when you were telling that story, the house I'm picturing is the house I went to.
It's probably about the same type of thing. It really, it's so wild though when he tells the story about it, because I mean, it definitely had power. There's definitely that exists.
Yeah.
And we'll get into more of my experiences with that stuff too, but it exists. Like, you seek it out, you'll get some level of it. Now, I will say this though, that in that realm, there's always a game too.
Clearly.
There's always something that it doesn't necessarily add up the way you want it to. Now, it may in some ways. Some people may get millions of dollars out of it and they become, famous. But at the end of the day, there's always a game behind the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's always about control. It's about suppression. It's about suppressing your mind.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, man. That's a very dramatic story that your dad has for himself. And I'm assuming he has no regrets from that point on. He considers it a
No.
blessing being robbed and everything.
I'd tell you really crazy though, if people can catch it, he did this was before podcasts. It was a radio show called Unshackled, like way back in like the 90s, I think.
Hey, Susan, good to see ya.
Found it. He's actually got it there where he talks about his whole like story.
Really?
Yeah, his name's Charlie Orr. So if you just dig around and find
Charlie
it,
Orr.
yeah, maybe you can find it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. He
Wow.
does it a lot of his sermons, and if he does any traveling, he'll share this story with people because it's pretty unique.
Yeah, I'll tell you straight up, if your dad would be interested, I'd be interested in having him on the show to tell the story.
He might,
in
for
detail.
sure.
So those kind of stories,
Yeah.
they get me rolling, man. Like, because I identify with it. I went through a situation similar, only I wasn't trying to join. I was
Right.
they were trying to. He was trying to do something to me. It was. Listen, I mean, the bottom line is, I've talked to a lot of people about my experience, and the last time I talked about it was on Fringe FM with Joe Roop, and Joe Roop and I, we don't agree on a lot of things when it comes to
Right.
spirituality stuff. You know, me being, a Christian, and him being somebody, I don't even know what he is, but it's like more mystical.
Right.
I know he sells magic boxes and things like that.
Right,
When I
right.
told him that story, his reaction and stuff, it was just like, whoa. And so like hearing these stories, I guess I relate to him a lot because I kind of went through a similar thing. Only Joe said that, and the people that were calling to his show said that they believe he was trying to release something on me, like a demonic entity.
Well, here's the thing too. Even if you're talking about the mystical arts, and I can go into that too because I dealt with a lot of people that are involved in that field.
Mm.
So, like for me, it's understanding that there's good and evil. If you talk to anyone in any facet of whether it's Christianity or if we go into mysticism or Islam or whatever, there's always good and evil. So at the end of the day, no matter what you think, there is good and evil.
Yeah.
Like we can sit here and say that it doesn't exist, but man, there's a whole lot going on in the world right now that if you don't think there's evil, then you're just really putting the blinders on.
Wow.
And if you do think there's evil and think that there can't be good, what does evil fight against, right? There has to be two sides. It doesn't exist that way.
Yeah. That's the funny thing is that a lot of times people find themselves leaning towards believing in one side but not the other.
It's kind of impossible, though. It doesn't.
Yeah, but I think
Wow.
there's a fear factor.
True.
I think there's a fear factor for people that it's almost
Wow, Diane, that's pretty heavy.
like one of those things where if you don't acknowledge it, it doesn't exist. And so whether it's the say a Christian not wanting to believe that there are people out there that are Satanists, or there are, like, I've talked to Christians who don't believe that there are demons. I'm just like, read much, like,
Right.
and
Right.
and then there's the other side of things where people who are, say they're more I don't want to go down the satanic road as much as the spiritual road and summoning entities, but yet they don't want to believe that there is a higher God that rules over
Right.
the they don't want to believe in Jehovah.
Right.
You know?
And that's the tough thing too. And I think that that's something that everybody's got to find their own journey about how they figure things
Right.
out. I think the basis is, I think you need to know that there's good and evil. I think at that point you can start figuring out how you want to operate with that. I'm not a big proponent on religion itself. I think I'm more of a proponent on, or your relationship. So like,
100%.
I think like that is at the core of like what you need to go with, and then you can figure out the rest for yourself. I mean, listen, some of the most flawed individuals in history have done some great things. So,
Yeah.
We're fallible human beings. It's what we are.
Yeah.
We're meat sacks. So at the end of the day,
Indeed.
so that's what we are.
Indeed.
So, I feel like that's where people need to come with it. But I also don't push anything on anybody either. I'm still figuring things out for myself because
Yep.
as we go throughout this conversation, what I've seen and things that I've been a part of, it's tough. Like when you've like seen the full 360 spectrum or been a part of the full 360 spectrum and just been like, you kind of go for a loop a little bit and you're just
Mhm.
trying to get your bearings. And I think with what I'm doing with music now, and I think with, what I'm trying to build, like for my family and everything, I think it's bringing that into like a perfect sphere for me.
Yeah.
All right.
right, let's take a break right now and talk about this week's sponsor, which is Storyworth. Now, friends, listen, if you have a mom in your life you want to make feel special for Mother's Day, this is a great option for you, and it's a great option for me too, because you see, my mom had a really bad, I'd say last year and even into this year. Just a month ago, she had COVID, and actually the COVID, of all the people in my life, she was the one I didn't want getting it of anybody, because she already has a lot of pre-existing conditions that really kind of hamper her down health-wise. But she got COVID, and thank God, all it was is just a bunch of sniffles. She said it felt like a cold, wasn't a big deal. And then after that 14-day period, she's looking to get back to work, and all of a sudden she comes down with pneumonia. And that's what really kicked her butt. She had to drive herself to the hospital, check her in for a few days, and thankfully she got through it just fine, which I'm really grateful for. But it was really scary for us. So my mom, she had a pretty tough year, and I want to make her feel special, and that's why we're doing Storyworth for Mother's Day this year. Now, Storyworth is an online service that helps your mom, grandmother, mother-in-law, and every other mother figure in your life share stories through thought-provoking questions about their memories and personal thoughts. It's a fun way to engage them, especially if you can't be there in person. Now, Storyworth emails your mom or anybody a different story prompt question you never thought to ask, like, what is some of the best advice your mother gave you? That's a question that I never thought to ask my mom, but I thought it'd be a good question to ask her. So these are the kind of questions that Storyworth will send your mother or a loved one to help them think through the process. And you actually get to read their life story at the end of it. They answer all these questions, and it's just a really great way for you to get to know the person that you love in your life that maybe you just never really thought to ask certain questions, and they get to document it. It's really a great option for people, and it makes the family feel closer together. It makes the loved ones feel closer together, and that's what I'm all about. I'm about loving my family and taking care of everybody. Now, after 1 year, Storyworth will compile all your mom's stories, including photos, into a beautiful keepsake book that's shipped for free. Now, listen, friends, give your mom the most meaningful gift this Mother's Day with Storyworth. Get started right now with no shipping required by going to storyworth.com/confessionals. You'll get $10 off your first purchase. That's storyworth.com/confessionals for your $10 off, and make your family, your loved ones, your mother for this Mother's Day feel loved and appreciated. Listen, let's talk about, well, listen, I'm not sure if you want to talk about your UFO sighting next, or if you wanted to go into, the paranormal situations with your son's mom and stuff. How would you like to get through this? I mean, because I wrote down UFO encounter for next.
Let's go into the other first.
Okay.
If because I will say that the UFO stuff kind of came in like a very interesting time in my life when I was seeking out knowledge and power.
Okay.
Nothing but a dream.
Okay.
And a lot of those things, and I think some of that had to do with that, obviously. But this was the precursor to build into that. So I think that's kind of important.
Let's do it, man. Go for it.
Yeah, so I met my son's mom. I actually knew her in high school. She was younger than me, but like we had met after high school. Like I had graduated, had been out of school for a while. She had graduated, so we ended up running into each other, connecting, and we started dating. And as we were hanging out, she told me some more things about her in the past. When she was 15, 16 years old, she got really deep into Wicca and understanding a lot of that stuff. Now, in saying that, I've known some people that are into Wicca that aren't necessarily in it for evil. So I can see that side of it, but she was totally in it for black magic. Like she was in it for that.
See, pause there for a second, because I've talked to a lot of Wiccans myself, and I can't remember a time that I've heard a Wiccan say that they are pursuing black magic, because like I've talked to Wiccans and they're like, it's not like that. It's more like pure and
Which
yeah.
you have that side of it too.
Yeah, I just like I'm not saying it's not there as far as black magic goes. It catches me off guard that a Wiccan would say that, because I've never heard a Wiccan go down that road. Now, granted, my scope is literally the people that contact me through the show. I don't go seeking out Wiccans, but I've talked to several Wiccans, and they we're adamant that it's not the dark black magic.
I think the ones that are going to be willing to talk to you aren't involved with that stuff, and that's why they're going to be able
Makes
to talk
sense.
to you. I
Makes
don't
sense.
think anyone that's involved in that level
Good
is going to
pickup.
be, talking to you. It's not like you're going to walk up and be like, hey, you know what? I'm a mother of darkness. Like, they're not going to come tell you that. So
You had to drop the Mothers of Darkness. All right, let's. But they're not ready for it yet.
Yeah.
We're working on that
True.
one. So,
spoiler alert.
yeah. So go ahead.
So anyway, so she told me this, but this was after the fact that she was done doing that. She had stepped away from it. She was, knew that it wasn't good, but there's a lot of repercussions that come along with that. So at the time, she was doing a lot of curses on people. Some bad things happened to people. Her and another friend that was super involved with that, they actually did a lot of these things to people. She didn't go into super detail what happened to some of these people, but it wasn't good. I know something real bad happened with one person. I don't know to the extent, but I do know from her, it was something she never wanted to talk about. And it was very, touchy subject. I didn't really push it because I don't want to push somebody on that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But the residuals of that were a lot of entities that would follow us places that I wouldn't necessarily see, but I would feel she would see them. There was a little girl that used to follow us around everywhere. And we might be at a drive-through. She would say she's behind us. And she would be staring at, looking at us. I wouldn't see it, but she would. I know several times we'd be in the bed. It would be looking at us from the end of the bed, which is pretty crazy. One night, particularly, which was really wild, that was going on. I felt really weird. Like it felt bad in that room, and I had never felt that bad before. And this is, like I said, way before I started going on my journey of like all the other stuff. So I wasn't even tapping into this stuff at the time. So I just felt like, I don't know, evil was in the room. If I can say it either way. So I turned the light on, and when I did, a hair barrette shot up off the floor and hit the ceiling. Not only that, before that happened, I missed the key part. Another voice comes out of her mouth and tells me something that only my mom told me when I was a kid, which was crazy. And I say that because of what happened to my dad before, which tied that together, which made me really freak out at the time because my mom used to call me a manipulator when I was a kid. She's like, oh, you're just a little manipulator or whatever. And the entity told me in a man's voice that came out of her.
Of your girlfriend?
Yes. A deep voice said, maybe I can try to do it, but you're just a manipulator. Like that. It was just the most demonic thing I ever heard. It was not her voice. She doesn't even remember doing it. Because when I popped up, the hair barrette shot hit the top of the ceiling. I turned the light on, like, what did you just say to me? And she almost like she shook it out of it. And she's like, what do you mean? She's like, I don't know what I did.
Wow.
What came out of your mouth? Like, I've never told you anything like that. Like, it was verbatim the way my mom told me when I was like 5 or 6. Really weird situation for me. So I, definitely that was part of a lot of things that were creepy. And I do bring that in because of things that happened later on that also tied into things with her. Even though we weren't together anymore, it kind of started that road of, back then I was not interested in any of that stuff. It really freaked me out. I was in my early 20s. I'm like, man, I don't want anything to do with this stuff. Like, I already knew from my dad, like, whatever. But I think because of hip hop and like how bad that I wanted it, like, you get to a point.
Diane, I'm pretty sure a solar flare can take out the net because they had the Carrington event in 1890s that fried all the Morse code poles and things like that, the telephone wires. So I knocked that out in, what was it, not 1890 or something. So I could easily knock out today's electricity grid. That's just my opinion.
You get desperate. Like,
You were willing to sell your soul in a sense?
I mean,
Like, because we
not
hear,
willing, I wanted to.
Yeah.
Like,
like we hear artists that say, I sold my soul. Like Katy Perry said it.
they're not joking when they say
What's
that.
the guy that just died not too long ago? Juice.
Lynn something.
Juice WRLD. Like he did stuff like that. Like, so were you on that kind of level? Like, if you had the opportunity to do something like that, would you have done it?
I went on a trying to think, 5 to 6 year trek on that road. Like,
So you're saying at one point in your life, there was a point in your life, whether it was a day or 6 years, that if you were proposed that you could sell your soul for all the riches in this world and have all fame and glory in the hip hop industry like Eminem, you would have been like, I'm in.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. I mean, awesome in the sense that you're willing to admit that and talk about it.
Yeah, only because he's saved now he can admit it.
It's interesting for me because you hear about these artists that do this kind of stuff.
right.
But I can't fathom ever getting to the point of wanting something so bad to be willing to do that. And I'm actually really, I'm going to say this, but I know it's probably not going to sound, it's not going to translate well for the audience, I'm sure. I'm really glad that you did and you're willing to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because not that I'm glad you were in that spot in your life one time where you're willing to do something like that, but the fact that you did get to that point, you didn't do it, and you came out of it, and you're willing to talk about it. Because when you reach that kind of level,
I tried. Don't get me wrong. I definitely tried.
oh, I know,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm saying. Though, like when you reach that kind of level,
I think there was stuff around me though, like with my parents and things going on. What's a good word for it? The spiritual realm, that was a battle.
yeah. No, I mean, from your dad's past,
Yeah.
I think it marks things in life for the future generation. I wonder what happens to my children in the future, just from
Right.
things that I've done in my life.
Right.
You know, like I've never dabbled in witchcraft or things like that. But I mean, I was a very violent individual,
Right.
and I wonder if that's something that my children could get passed on with, and it's like the spirit of violence and stuff. And you know, my son, I see him being very aggressive, and I kind of overparent then, where I'm just
Right.
like, I come in hard on him because I
Right.
don't want him going down that road. And people are like, you need to chill and relax. He's just 3 years old. I'm like, yeah, but
Right.
you know, so I think about that kind of stuff a lot, man.
I think for me, you know, I've always been really open-minded with my kids, and I think that I try to let them explore their own space. They're older now.
Sure.
I think that was something that was not that it was like, you know, my parents' fault, but I felt like that I wasn't allowed to explore a space where I could figure things out for myself in a way.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of put me on that path.
No, and I can understand that because, and it's not even, if my dad ever hears this, I don't think he'd disagree with me. Growing up, when he decided to start taking church and God serious when I was in high school, like it wasn't an option to explore my faith or grow into my faith.
Right.
It was, this is what we do.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And so like I had to, you know, I was like,
Hey, boss, good to see you, bro.
of this Christian environment, which I don't think is a bad thing.
Right.
But I didn't really ever explore. Maybe it was that I never took the personal time to explore my faith and stuff. But it did lead to me posing as a Christian into my mid-20s
Right.
until I hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
Not even mid-20s, early 20s. So I hit rock bottom in my mid-20s,
Mhm.
and I almost lost my marriage.
I hit rock bottom on so many times. I've probably hit rock bottom 5 or 6 times. Getting released from jail with no money in your pocket and nowhere to go, that's when you're at the bottom of the barrel.
I almost threw my entire life away. I was literally ready to just pack it up and move to no-name town somewhere off and maybe even another
Yeah.
country and just restart and exist somewhere else.
Yeah.
Thankfully,
It
I didn't
rained
have
last
to.
night,
My
we
marriage
couldn't
was
do it.
saved and all that stuff. But I can definitely see how, you know, the environment growing up can portray or relay into a rebellion spirit, a rebellious nature where it's like, let me just do my own thing and figure it out, you know?
Super for me though, because I started getting involved with hip hop, and my parents just weren't having it at the time. at all.
Sure.
And
My dad's still not having it.
Yeah. You know, they essentially, you know, gave me an ultimatum, like either give it up or get out of the house, and I chose to get out of the house.
Okay.
And that kind of put me on that path.
Sure.
Very rebellious. You know, like I said, not blaming them for anything at all, especially knowing like my dad's past. You know, why wouldn't he have been very protective.
Right.
Which again, because I remember being maybe 13, and I remember going into his office at church, and he had like books for days, and there was like a section of books he would never let me like get into and read. Really, like it was like Masonic stuff and different things.
Oh,
Like he
okay.
studied, because he kept up on things, but he told me that I wasn't ready for that. Or whatever.
Did your dad ever join the Masons?
No, not at all. It was just my dad likes to be very knowledgeable about the occult and the things that go on within that realm because he knows how to combat it.
Yeah.
But it intrigued me. I'll be honest with you, big time. Because what's not intriguing about something that's secret? It's a secret society. I mean, it's what it is. It's the world's oldest fraternity, essentially. The ones that we don't talk about. But
the ones you don't know about.
Right. But yeah, like that was, for me, that's why I kind of went down that path. I had the experiences early, with my son's mom, and then I started really. As I got deeper into hip hop, the allure came with that whole Illuminati era that popped up. It was like Jay-Z's and all these artists were pumping imagery out, but people were catching on to some of the stuff. It wasn't so much, it was, hiding in plain sight so much. It was people were seeing it.
Yeah.
And I think there was an allure with that too. I think that was part of a psyop as well. I think they wanted to do that to get people desensitized to it, one, and two, to make people want to be a part of that, or at least like see it is a cool thing.
Yeah. You have no idea how many triangles I threw up in my younger years.
Absolutely.
Just because I saw Jay-Z doing it.
Yeah,
I used to
know what it was.
Wear Rockaware, you know what I mean? Like all the stupid big clothing and all the symbolics. Like I would wear it to church because I didn't know what it meant. It was just Jay-Z stuff, and it was cool.
It was,
you know.
I mean, and
now you got Lil Nas doing it to the next generation.
Absolutely. And you got, with Jay-Z, his whole trajectory, if you do the history and go back, there's pictures of him with Freemasons. I mean, it's before he made it. So, like, he's been involved for a long time, way before.
Yes.
One of my favorite songs, which is also probably one of his just absolute putting it out there songs off his first album, Reasonable Doubt, was The Evils, which is just...
Evils, I don't remember that one.
Nobody talks about it, man. Unless you get the album, you don't hear it. Now, you can catch it on YouTube. You can type it on YouTube. But he samples Prodigy and Snoop Dogg on the hook. And it's like, dear God, I wonder, can you save me? Illuminati, hold my mind, soul, and my body. So, like, that's the hook. But that was way before all this whole era came. He was telling you back then. Like, he was involved way back then. I mean, Jay-Z's not, like, a billionaire for no reason. Like, this guy is involved in things that are just far beyond our scope of knowledge, really. And the guy is a genius in very many different aspects of life. It's not just like music. Guy's a superb businessman. He knows what he's doing, but he's also connected with the right people. And that was alluring to me. Like, he's seeing guys like that are just on top, untouchable, essentially. They've got this power behind them, and then you start, looking at it from like the aspect of like, what's the other side giving me? Like, nothing. Like, essentially. And then I was in a weird space anyway where I had stopped really just believing anything. And I was just kind of on my own, and nothing was working out, and like working dead end jobs, and just nothing was happening. And then this started happening. Like, I started seeing it, and it just became really alluring and exciting for me. And then I just started tapping in. I had...
Guys, I didn't know this show had no actual movement. It's a radio program. I didn't know that, so I might switch to Redacted. They've got something interesting, which will take us right up to Mike from around the world. I just loaded it. You okay, Mum?
On this show, we invite journalists and thought leaders and whistleblowers and interesting people who have...
Hey, Shawnee, good to see you.
Welcome to Redacted Conversations. I'm Clayton Morris. On this show, we invite journalists and thought leaders and whistleblowers and interesting people who have interesting stories to tell. And our guest today is John D'Souza. John D'Souza is a retired FBI special agent who served 25 years on counterterrorism, paranormal cases. He had a top secret security clearance during his FBI career. In fact, D'Souza literally collected the real-life X-Files that were used in the show, The X-Files. And I want to welcome John in. John, I became aware of you.
Shawnee, that wasn't the name of that Hammerslooter they just got rid of, was it? Sinmore, that wasn't his name, was it? Surely not.
Because I think about a year ago, you said publicly on an interview that I caught that, hey, the government is going to use.
I always said your name that hints at your character. I've always said that. And there's a proof.
Some sort of a UFO invasion, a fake UFO invasion story. And you laid it out specifically. And then wouldn't you know, a few weeks ago, we have Chinese balloons and UFO invasion. And I remember that interview. We featured it on the show, and my audience was like, holy smokes.
Oh, man, it's clear. Now I'm going
So, John, that's how I
to
first learned about you. So I said, I want to have John on the show. I want to hear about his FBI career. I want to hear about these X-Files. I want to hear about your writing. I want to hear about how prescient you were with all of these, this awareness about what the deep state is doing, the cabal, and all of that. So, John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Clayton. It is great to be here with you on Redacted Conversations, Redacted News. You guys are fantastic, and I am so happy to be here. This is a great privilege for me. And yes, all that you were saying is correct. And I am John D'Souza. I was a special agent investigator in the FBI for 25 years. That was over 25 years. And I was
Shawnee, it's the first time she's coughed all day.
Had several of their stories way back in 1993. There were several of my stories were taken by a show that was on the air at that time for about a year. It was called The X-Files, and it was using several of my cases and the FBI actually called the creator of that show while I was there, our bosses at the FBI, and told him, where did you get those stories from? Because they were classified. They were not only classified, they were buttoned up, what we call buttoned up, having everybody sign additional non-disclosures and things like that. And so the creator, Chris Carter, he tells this story today. He had to answer. Wow. He was told by the FBI that his show was going to be shut down. And he had.
Hope he's got his sunscreen because it's pretty hot where Sinwar's going.
Had to tell them where they got his show because they were obviously accusing me at the time of giving this information to Chris Carter. That was not the case. And he expressed to them that that was not the case as well. And he actually got the stories from several retired FBI agents that actually were working with me and went to Hollywood to be consultants. And they got my, what we call the OTB book, the off the books notes that I have of cases that were.
Diane, they already broke that rule that they can't use the American army against the citizens when they went into Waco with tanks. They went into Waco with tanks. That's against the Constitution.
Not really put into FBI files.
Or the Bill of Rights.
For various reasons. Many of us have those books. And they're very interesting and they're very good. And other than that, though, I also worked all the big counterterrorism cases as well. That was kind of like my major, while paranormal was kind of my minor at that point. And so that's where I come from. That's what I have done. And I have a lot of things that I share with people these days in my books and in my presentations and everything else that I do.
So I want to dive into a lot of these things. I want to talk about the cabal today. I want to talk about the deep state. I want to talk about why you left the FBI, maybe the current state of the FBI. But first, before we get into some of that, maybe we can just talk about some of the news of the day.
Hey, Lynn, good to see you.
I came to learn about you, which is around this UFO flap, this Chinese balloon story. And you, over a year ago, were saying they are lying to us what they're going to do next. It's already prepared. They are going to tell us that a UFO invasion is coming. It will be used as a story. There won't be a UFO invasion. It'll be used as a story. And then I couldn't believe this all. I mean, it was all laid out there. It all was coming to be. Oh, it was Chinese balloons. Now maybe it was UFOs. Now it's UFOs. And now we're really ramping up the Pentagon awareness about it. And my side of it has been that they want to use this story to spend money, the military-industrial complex, to continue to make billions of dollars, and using Space Force as the next way to do that and all of this. So am I wrong about that, or could you elaborate on that? And how did you know that this was going to be the case, that they were going to use this story to scare people?
The way that I knew was through my investigations that have been painstaking over the years, and also my information that I get from the intelligence community.
And Diane, you know, it's a coincidence. Our government, which is left-leaning, they're he's the worst prime minister we've had in my lifetime. They're bringing a bill to where they can limit free speech. Like if they don't, like your guys are doing to you, our guys doing it to us now, and it's always the lefties doing it.
In the intelligence community, which is the people who have worked with and been around the FBI, the NSA, the CIA, all this, and also the intelligence agencies of other nations, of the other English-speaking nations, which includes many countries, because we also count India, Israel in that as well, and many others. And so we have a way of sharing information to each other, which is through something called raw data and rumor, so that we are not violating any secrecy, we're not violating any top secret sort of prohibitions. So we're able to talk to each other about rumors, about things that may possibly be true. And the thing is, today, when you're in an atmosphere of complete and total deception, like we are today, then rumors become possibly life-saving, potentially life-saving at this point.
Right.
And that's where we are. That's where we are today again.
Wow.
So that we are actually able to latch on to important rumors, raw data that is running around, and we're able to share it. And that's a large part of how I get my information and how I get the things that I have. For instance, it was actually several years ago when I actually wrote my book, The Extra Dimensionals. My book, The Extra Dimensionals, which lays out everything that we've been talking about. It lays out the fake alien invasion. Anybody who follows me knows that I've been talking about this for
Project Bluebeam. It's in my OSD code.
For several years now, and because it's all playing out exactly as I ascertained in my book, The Extra Dimensionals, which, by the way, has just gone back to #1 bestseller on all the Amazon lists in this country because of that. And I've had all kinds of mainstream media trying to contact me. It's blown up like crazily, trying to contact me because my predictions from the Extra Dimensionals are coming true right now. Yeah. And the main part of that prediction is that we would have this, you hear this buzzword, UAPs, right? Rather than UFO. We had this elaborate operation.
Yeah.
It's a psychological operation, the PSYOP, that has gone forward since, I would say, about 2012. But it actually goes back to 2004 because the New York Times, the great launch pad of all giant PSYOPs, the New York Times actually in 2012, I believe, revealed, or maybe may have been later than that, revealed this UAP operation where the Navy has basically, the United States Navy has actually taken over taken over the UFO, the entire UFO genre from the Air Force, because all of these things, UFOs, UAPs, should belong to the United States Air Force, like they always have since Roswell, in the 1950s, I believe. And the U.S. Air Force has always belonged to this, has always taken over this area. Now it's been shifted because they decided to move into this UAP phenomenon, where in 2004 we had a bunch of these sort of silver-colored, and what they are is they're top secret drones. They're drones that possibly use anti-gravity technology from possibly Roswell. That was technology transferred from Roswell. And so we have all of these UAPs. And in 2004, we had a final giant experiment off the coast of California in the Pacific Ocean, where we had the no less a military force than the U.S. Nimitz carrier group, battle carrier group, that was off the coast of California and created a safe space for this final experimentation that went on. That's my description of what happened. In the New York Times and in all media around the world, it was described as, well, the Nimitz carrier group just suddenly happened upon these UFOs, and they kind of use softer language to describe UFOs, but they said, oh, this group of UFOs were buzzing around and they were at incredible speeds, and here's the pilot's conversations that they had at the time to tell us about this. And it's incredible, it's amazing. Then we had that was the launching of the UAP phenomenon across this country.
Support your energy, stress, and sleep with Australia's #1 magnesium brand.
So it starts there, right? When the New York Times breaks that story, right? And everything, oh my God, now we can talk about this, right? In the mainstream, right. The Pentagon can start holding, we're going to have committees on this. Congress is looking into this. Senator Marco Rubio wants to make more money off of this. The whole thing starts and then moves in that direction, right? And it's a psychological operation. So it was all controlled, was what you're saying. This idea that that we knew that USS Nimitz was going to be there, and this was all sort of planned for this to be launched and sort of disseminated to the public. So these drones, these craft, are they U.S. made craft, reverse engineered from downed Roswell craft, or are these otherworldly beings, otherworldly craft? What does your intelligence tell you about that? If you were involved in the X-Files program and at the FBI, what do you know about it?
Well, you had about 3 questions there, and I would say yes, no, and yes. But,
okay, go for it.
The answers are that no, they are man-made. They are man-made things. They are recognizable by the signature silverish sort of skin that they have.
Diane hit it on the head. It's hard to own guns here.
But the shapes.
And under the table gun sales, the black market, it's run by the bikies. All the bikies run the gun dealing.
Tend to be different in every case. There are some that are cigar shaped. There are some that are larger. There are some that are much, much smaller. Some of them are those tic tac shapes, those kind of ovals. So they're all different shapes and sizes. However, they have the same signatures of the movement that they are capable of. However, the way that we know they're not true UFOs. True UFOs can be extraterrestrial and extra dimensional. In other words, they are usually they have capacity for shape shifting. They have a capacity for disappearing and reappearing. That is one of the ways that we know genuine UFOs are afoot. We're able to see those qualities in them. These Tic Tacs, these UAPs don't have those abilities. However, I do believe that they have the ability to destroy things, and that's why they're being built up. They are not, and this is the thing we're struggling with even now.
Amen,
in our
boss.
Congress, in our Senate, and in other places. They are man-made, but they appear not to be made by the United States per se. We do have a congressman recently. I don't want to get summoned before any subcommittees, so I won't say his name, but we have a congressman from, I think he was from Indiana, who ran around. He was running around to these different subcommittees, and one of the things that he said was, these things appear to be man-made, and this is after several classified briefings that the subcommittees think nobody finds anything out about. He said it appears that these vehicles are man-made. Indeed, they are, but they're not made by the United States. They appear not to be made by Russia or China. However, it does appear that
The guys in Antarctica then.
our global aerospace companies probably had several hands in creating these things. And he's talking about McDonnell Douglas, Raytheon, and several other companies that really don't consider themselves American. They're actually global companies. And he said it looks like those guys had some kind of hand in creating these UAPs, but it appears they are not under the control of the United States or any other nation.
Yes.
And that's all he said. And it was amazing when he said that, because it really leads to several other conclusions that, well, then who's controlling them? And it appears that the ones who are controlling them are the deep state, which is not an American organization. The deep state, the cabal, the power that is over nations appears to be controlling them, and that fits in perfectly with them eventually building up this campaign of fear in the nations, which is what they're doing right now, to make people fear these UAPs. Ultimately, and I'll tell you the next step. It's a little difficult to hear, but the next step, because they need to keep building up the fear of these UAPs. Next step is really for the UAPs to start shooting down our commercial airliners and our
Wow.
in the skies. And that, I believe, is going to be happening very, very soon.
So the fear, at first we're hearing these Chinese balloons, we're hearing these stories about these things, and for decades we've heard that these things are benevolent, that if anything they want peace. If they're over Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, that they don't want us using nuclear weapons, etc. Right? Anyone that follows these stories and knows the eyewitness accounts of the members of the military at Malmstrom Air Force Base, they were there and they were shutting off nuclear warheads that were not even connected to one another, right? With redundant systems. They were separately plugged in, basically, right? It's not like pulling out a surge protector. They were separately turned offline while this UFO was hovering above Malmstrom Air Force Base. And this is confirmed by members of the Air Force. Like, this is not me saying this. This is the Air Force saying this. So we've heard for decades that these are benevolent, this not, and now we're going to start to hear they're going to start to use this story with these man-made craft, whether by Raytheon, whatever, to start creating problems, so that we think that these are some otherworldly beings, but they're really us doing it. And they're going to start shooting down aircraft now. That's crazy. And I've heard similar things. So I'm not, what you're saying comports with what I'm hearing separately. And it's scary, but I want to know, what's the end goal?
Yep.
Right? When I sit here and I sit back with my cup of coffee and I think, okay, three-dimensional chess, the deep state, the cabal, what they want, the World Economic Forum. They want control. They want control of our money supply. They don't want any sovereign states. We know that. They want a global environment that they control, unelected leaders. What do they want in this situation where they would want to start taking down aircraft?
Good question.
What do you know from your experience in the
Great
FBI
question,
that they
yeah.
have this deep state? What do they want?
The end goal is, and this is a long-term psychological operation, as well as physical operation as well. The long-term goal is ultimately to put together this grand operation called fake alien invasion. Now, the only fake part about it is going to be that the alien visitors are involved with this. They're not at all. Everything else is going to be real. The destruction that they bring to our cities is going to be real. That's what they want to do. And that's the reason that they had to divorce, because of what you just said. A lot of, and all of this, I explain all of this in my book, The Extra Dimensionals, which came out several years ago. And all of the history of UFOs, much of it has been benevolent towards mankind. For instance, we've seen since Rendlesham in 1980, when Reagan was in office, we saw these UFOs that had all the hallmarks of actual UFOs, extra dimensional UFOs. They were UFOs that descended on an American military base on British soil in Rendlesham Forest, and we saw them. A lot of them were filled with light. They were obviously in a transitional state of matter. They had the ability to appear and disappear, and they all, now we're finding out, they all went and shut down nuclear missiles that were apparently at Rendlesham, and that has been something that we've seen throughout history. And one of the reasons that they do that is because they know that there's something is going to happen with those nuclear missiles at that moment that nobody else knows. And that's one of the reasons that they come and they deactivate these nuclear missiles that are being readied for use in some capacity at that time.
It's true,
And
Di.
there's been a long history of that throughout, even before 1980 and even beyond at that time. So this has been going on, and that shows benevolent intent from real, actual UFOs that are possibly extraterrestrial. That is the reason why this operation had to divorce themselves from the label UFOs, and they had to create this new thing, UAPs. And the ultimate goal, again, as I said, is fake alien invasion, which will not be pretty holograms, as many people believe. Many people have taken my theories and my work, and they've kind of screwed up.
Welcome to the college at Western. The diplomas are a pathway into multiple bachelor degrees at Western. The learning is
Want a garden that's in good form? Unleash the power of organics with the new Scott's Organic Plant Food range.
Screw up the punchline, and the reason is because they're saying, oh well, fake alien invasion is going to be just a bunch of holograms from Blue Beam project, from the Blue Beam operation,
Right?
And no, that's not what it's going to be. It's going to be these very physical, and this is another thing. If anyone follows my work or reads my books, they know that alien visitors and UFOs are not physical in the way that we are. They are just not physical. And that's something I first learned from the FBI in a document that was handed to me as soon as I got into the FBI as what we call a control file. And it was the bullet, the magic bullet, which is a document. The magic bullet is a document that I show in my book, The Extra Dimensionals. It's a government document showing an FBI agent who had an informant, and he says in there that the FBI, that the informant was an alien visitor, and he says that gave him about 8 conclusions about, and this was at the time of Roswell, when everyone was going nuts, and trying to ascertain what are all these UFOs. Apparently, there was huge worldwide wave of UFOs across the planet at this time. So this FBI agent happened to be a scientist himself, and he actually sent out this document to the world, and it said basically alien. He gave 8 conclusions. Alien visitors and UFOs are not physical. They are not physical. They are from another dimension. They are from another dimension of reality, and they can kind of manifest physically here for short periods of time. And the same is true with the UFOs that come with them. And he also said they are here for peaceful purposes. We shouldn't attack them ever. If we do, it will go very, very badly for us. And we saw exactly that happen in 1952 over Washington D.C. when a bunch of UFOs came
Hey,
in.
Bill, good to see you,
It was
mate.
the most protected airspace in the world, and our entire Air Force was sent out after them for the last time. This is the last time any Western nation did that, and until now. And the reason it was the last time is because those over 14 days we saw in the report that came out after that in 1952, we saw that those UFOs just embarrassed all of our military jets and did circles around them, did over-unders, and for 14 days they just humiliated our Air Force and could very easily have destroyed them. Very easily. And they didn't. They didn't. They just hung around for 14 days for some reason. I don't know why. And they buzzed all over the Capitol and everywhere. And those appeared to be genuine UFOs at that time. But because they had those abilities to be filled with light, to be shape-shifting properties, and so forth. And so these are the things that we need to look at so that we can tell when the government is lying to us, when they say things like, yeah, we just shot down a bunch of UFOs. We just shot down. We're not going to show you any materials. We're not going to show you anything or tell you anything about it. But yeah, just trust us.
I can't get rid of the glare again.
Real UFOs cannot be shot down. We saw that in the Battle of Los Angeles when the entire California coast was militarized against Japanese Zeros. And we had all this munitions out there, and then a couple of very large UFOs came sailing in, and they shot everything they had up at it. All they did was kill about 4 or 5 civilians on the ground. Most of the munitions just passed gently through the UFOs. And then we had cameras that were taking pictures every second, every half second there. And after all the smoke cleared, you saw 2 giant UFOs very happily sailing away, undamaged from this occurrence. Those were genuine UFOs because they had that ability to dematerialize, to have these qualities that only genuine UFOs can have. UAPs don't have that.
So your time at the FBI, you were there for 25 years. You were involved in some of these cases. How did you start to get involved in some of these paranormal cases at the FBI?
Oh, that's because originally I was in the FBI from 1988 until 2013. That's up 25 years. And when I originally went in, I actually went through the academy. And one of the things that happened at the academy was that I ran into a couple of people that had worked this case in the FBI that was very, very, very famous, especially back in the 80s. It was the case of Maddox and Platt. They were they appeared to be just a couple of hillbillies who had been running around robbing banks throughout Miami and Florida. And they appeared to be normal people.
Wow.
However, what we found out later was that they were very, very special in some sense, because the FBI, an entire FBI task force cornered them, and had a huge shootout with them because, of course, they wouldn't surrender, and they had a giant shootout with them, and they had to drop on them. So the entire task force, both FBI agents and police officers, they shot them to pieces, both of them. However, instead of falling down and dying, they actually got their weapons and decided to trudge through this parking lot. It was like a parking lot of one of the banks. It was a parking lot that they found at random, and they forced them into there because they were in a bunch of cars. And then Maddox and Platt just got their weapons and started marching through the parking lot in a semicircle and killing the FBI agents and shooting the police officers. At that point, they just did, and it was called the Miami Massacre. The Miami Massacre, also the Great Miami Shootout was also called. And they shot all of them. They got all of them, and it was unbelievable what they did, because one of them was even shot through the aorta at the time.
No way.
They should have been dead, and they just marched through, and then they got in their car and they were leaving. They were leaving after they shot all the FBI agents and all the officers, and they were leaving. Then we had one hero FBI agent who had his arm shattered by Maddox and Platt, but he used his other hand, and he actually was able to shoot both of them, and he shot them, shoot both of them through the car as they were leaving, and he was able to shoot them through the neck and sever their spinal cords, and that's how they finally died. So anyway, after that happened, it was a huge scandal. It was a huge scandal. Like, how are these guys able to do what they did? This was unbelievable. And so the FBI scientists stepped forward and said, oh no, they were probably loaded up on angel dust. PCP was very popular at the time. So they said, when people are loaded up on this angel dust, they're able to perform superhuman feats, and they're able to so forth. Well, the blood test came back and showed that they had nothing in their system except a couple of cigarettes that they had smoked just before. They didn't even drink beer before they actually did this deed. And so it was a great mystery. And they were told to search for hard drugs in any way that they could find it, because people were looking for this explanation at the time, and there was a lot of political pressure on this situation to explain a couple of dead and maimed FBI agents, several of them in this case, and so those deputies were able to tell me that the only thing they found at this place was they found a little altar that was a pagan sort of Norse god altar, and it appeared that these two individuals had, at that time, they did some kind of sacrifice to some evil spirits from Norse mythology. There was something to do with berserker spirits, and so I told them, I said, that's it. That's how they did what they did. They did some kind of sacrifice, and these whatever was the god of mischief that they did these sacrifices to. I think it was called Loki, and to the berserker spirits, and they were given these berserker spirits, whatever they are. They were given that in order to accomplish what they did, and that's what they did. They had a complete dedication on a spiritual level that inhabited them, came to them, and helped them to do these extraordinary feats that they did. Anyway, at that point, what happened was the person in charge of the FBI Academy found out I was questioning people about this, and found out that I was finding this out. He then designated me as possibly being a New York Times reporter or something of that sort, and so that very much upset them. He told me he tried to make
prayers for Marty, Susan. Prayers for Marty.
sure that I didn't graduate the FBI Academy. However, I did. I did because I knew everything he was going to do against me. I was able to graduate the FBI Academy, but then he gave me my credentials, much against his will. And he, when I went to my first office, he said he actually contacted them and told them, hey, this guy likes to do paranormal cases, paranormal investigations. Let's, anything you've got, anything you hear of, let's load him up with that crap and see how he enjoys that. Let's do that. And my first office said, okay. And that's when they handed me several of those cases that I talked to you about earlier. And that's how I got started with paranormal cases.
So from Norse berserker infused murderers, bank robbers to UFO cases, were you then involved in UFO cases and mysteries around UFOs, UAPs at that time at the FBI?
Well, not UAPs, but yes, UFOs and that sort of thing. I became what we called a subject matter expert in those areas. What that means is that whenever in the FBI we would get a call from a desperate, let's say, sheriff or...
Lord, apparently Marty's not well, so we pray on her behalf and make everything well for her, Lord. Amen.
A desperate head of a jurisdiction anywhere in the country that had to do with UFOs, with paranormal, with abductions, with this sort of thing, then they would offer up that we did have a subject matter expert, well, the best that we could have at that time, in this area, and I would then go to assist in those areas under what's called a police cooperation request, which is just one sheet of paper that's filled out by the sheriff or the head of the jurisdiction, whoever they are, just requesting FBI assistance in this area, even if it doesn't fall under federal jurisdiction for whatever reason technically. So that's how I got started with that sort of thing.
So you would amount these X files, these case files would be coming to you and loading you up with these different. What was the? I don't know if you can talk about it, but what is maybe one of the craziest cases that you worked on that you still are scratching your head as to what you had to work on that we might not even know about or never heard about?
Enjoy.
Susan, prayers for your father as well.
Well, okay, the craziest one that I'm still not supposed to talk about, but I can say that it was featured in, I think it was like the first episode of the X-Files, or maybe it was the second of the first season. By the way, they used my stories during the first season of the X-Files, and then after that they went to they no longer used my cases. However, the rest of the X-Files was all based on true stories as well. However, I would say the craziest UFO, the craziest paranormal case was when I was sent to a military base. I mean, I can say in general terms, I was sent to a military base. We observed a military base where they had several disappearances that were
so sad, Susan, isn't it?
Associated with the appearance of UFOs in the area. And there were UFOs that the military base said, the commander said, I don't know what to do with this. I mean, I'm at my wit's end. And so we went to observe these UFOs that had been coming to the outskirts of this military base, and on a regular basis. And they were filled with light. They were filled with light, almost like they didn't even appear metal anymore. And they would just come. They would come to the edge of this forest, and there was a group of people who would just do a regular observance of these things.
Wow.
And so myself and my partner, we went and we were with those people. And for some reason...
Wow, 91. What a long life, Susan. Wow, good on him.
One of the UFOs picked us out for some reason and came directly at us, and just, it appeared to land on us at some point. All people ran, everyone ran, including us. But it appeared to land on us, but then it didn't because it disappeared somehow. And then we had people from the base who took me in against my will. They took me in and they interrogated me as to what my knowledge was of the UFOs. Why did the UFO come over to me in particular? Maybe it was something about me that I summoned them or something. So anyway, I went through a long process of them questioning me over that. And
isn't it amazing that you're the FBI and they're questioning you?
Yeah,
that doesn't seem like
exactly.
that's how it usually works, right?
Well, it's because they were not military personnel. They were at the military. They were at the base, but they were all dressed in black. They were, they appeared to be some, I don't know, like special forces types of guys. But they were all dressed in black. And then when they brought me.
So they're also using magic mushies for people with bad migraines. Apparently it really helps people with bad migraines.
Into the military base to be interrogated. They did not have any, there were no military people around. I couldn't see any of them. So anyway, then we contacted our FBI headquarters to get me released. And our FBI headquarters told me, no, it's fine. Those guys, we know who they are. Just answer their questions and they're going to release you. And so that's what we did. I answered as best I could. And then they ultimately released me several hours later. And it was just a horrendous experience for me. And it was one that really told me that those guys were not U.S. Personnel, let's put it that way. They were something higher, because the commander of the base lost total control. He had nothing to do with this. And it told me that these guys were somehow connected to a higher power, with what we know today as the cabal, and that they themselves don't fully know what is happening with the genuine UFOs, and they're desperate to find out. That's
the cabal. The cabal is desperate to find out.
Yes, exactly.
So what is the cabal? For anyone watching right now, I say on our show the deep state all the time, and I refer to the deep state as the permanent government, the people that are there after the 4-year presidents come and go, the senators come and go. These are the people that are unelected that actually run the show. Is the cabal the same thing or different?
They are the same thing because that is a subsidiary of them. The deep state is basically the we say it this way: the deep state is the American subsidiary of the cabal. The cabal is a global international group of the bloodlines. We don't call them families; we call them bloodlines because they have throughout the ages they have reproduced preternaturally. They have reproduced, and they go by different names. These bloodlines, they change their names every few generations, but they have existed since the beginning, since Babylonian Empire. They are the group that has controlled, let's say, the Roman Empire by lending money to them, by giving them money, and then giving money to the other sides as well. And so they have been able to control both sides in every world conflict. And they have been able to manipulate, let's say, the heads of the Roman Empire. Of the last great success that they had was the Nazi Empire here that almost took over the entire world. So that's what they use now. They use the methods that they discovered during the Nazi rise of power in 1938 in World War II. So they are the banking bloodlines, bloodlines that have existed for so long that basically tell the nations what to do.
Mhm.
That's the cabal. That's who they are. And that's who they are today.
Is that the first time that you discovered them at that military base that day? Is that when you said, "Oh, something else is going on
I was thinking Men in Black too, Shawnee.
here"? And
It's controlling here. Yes, absolutely.
Men in Black are a true thing. It's not just a Hollywood thing. Men in Black are a true thing.
That was the first moment when I said, okay, U.S. nation authority means nothing here. Absolutely nothing. These guys control everything. And then, and then the next moment when I realized that that was true was I was in the FBI. I was one of the first FBI agents that worked something that we called at that time FISA investigations under the newly formed FISA Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act and FISC, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court as well. It was the first law that got its own star chamber of judges, of courts that were just dedicated to them. But now the reason for that was because the FISA was only supposed to be used against international terrorists and agents of a foreign power, non-U.S. persons. That was the whole basis of the FISA. Well, what I found out later was that in I can't remember the year. It was early 1990s. The New York Times decided to reveal the most top secret system in the nation at the time, which was the FISC and the FISA system. And the New York Times just put out a bunch of articles revealing everything about FISA. We are not even supposed to know the word FISA today. However, the New York Times took it upon themselves to reveal everything. It was all top secret too. It was all top secret. And they told everything about it. And at the time, Bush the elder, the older Bush, was president. And at that time, he said, we're going to prosecute everybody in the New York Times that revealed all this stuff about FISA. We got the evidence. We're going to put them all in prison. And wouldn't you know, the New York Times said, no, it's not. And sure enough, that was the next time that I found out that the New York Times directly works with the cabal and has their authority, basically, because after all that, not a single person was ever questioned or called before a Senate committee or anything for violations of the Espionage Act, which they committed. I mean, tremendously committed. Wow. And that was the other moment when I found out, wow, anybody that's associated with the cabal basically has higher authority than the president of the United States or anybody else. So that's
we see that with the New York Times, and we see that with the New York Times today as a mouthpiece of the deep state still to this day. We've seen that in the Ukraine war, etc. So I'm curious why, and then when
it was in our newspaper today. Australia's sending 49 tanks to the Ukraine. So far, Australia's given the Ukraine $1 billion in aid.
What was it that prompted you to leave the FBI? What was the catalyst for that after 25 years? And now you're
after 25 years.
Yeah.
After that period of time, what happened was I was not going to leave the FBI. However, at that time, we were suffering under the oppression of an individual named Renegade, who was very well known as a hater of America. However, somehow the cabal influenced American elections and got him to be president. It was the individual that we know as Obama today.
I'm just after a gift for my dad.
What's the occasion?
Everything.
Finding a priceless gift at the right price. Nobody beats Stan Murphy's.
Today. And he became president of the United States, which is very ironic. And he actually placed, at that time, he placed in over the FBI an individual named James Comey.
I Oh,
He was a person who was known in government to be nothing more than a water carrier for the Clinton Foundation. He had spent the whole previous 20 years basically just running around and putting out fires, minimizing investigations against the Clinton Foundation, and making many of the investigations go away. That's all he was known for, and that's all basically that he did. And then at that time, he was put in charge of the FBI. I tried to tell everyone I could that we cannot have this guy in charge of the FBI. Eventually, that word apparently got back to him, and he actually sent what we call an angel of death over to where I was in the FBI, and that person was in charge of finding a way to get me fired and get me dismissed from the FBI before I retired, because I had already put in for retirement to get out at that time. And they tried, and all of this is documented in a movie called 1,000 Pieces, where I put all of this so that the story is available for people to see. And ultimately, they were unable to find a way to get me fired. Even Comey, with all his power, he had just been coming in as director, and I was able to leave on good terms from the FBI at that time. That's what occurred.
So what's next then? When we talk about these polycrises, we started the World Economic Forum, and Klaus Schwab says that we are announced at this latest Davos thing in Switzerland that we are facing polycrises, and these unelected group of globalists that want us to have this, I don't know, next round of disasters, next round of crises that they can control and manipulate us. What is their goal? What do we expect to see? You've been right on many accounts on this. So what can we expect to see over the next coming months into 2023, into 2024, at the end of this year, into 2024?
Well, we can expect for this policy of polycrisis to keep going and keep expanding. Polycrisis should be trending on Twitter. It should be everywhere. It is a term that means basically a large series of attacks in many different areas coming forward.
Good night, Susan. God bless.
United States in many different areas. Cyber attack, climate crisis, pandemic, economic collapse, all at
Give Marty our best, Susan.
the same time. It's basically just being attacked on multiple fronts with multiple mass casualty events. And with also the most important part, with no resistance or attempts by national, local police or forces and authorities to try to protect the public or to investigate any of these attacks. That's a very important component. These things can't go forward if there's any investigation. So that's why we have been seeing all of these railroad attacks, all these railroad derailings and the dumping of these toxic chemicals into our atmosphere. There's been no investigation. We haven't had a single FBI person step forward and have a press conference. Hey, we're getting to the bottom of these railroad attacks and the dumping. No, there hasn't been.
No. In fact, we heard from the head of the FBI last week, just a few days ago. Depending on when you're watching this video, we have the head of the FBI talking about China, the China problem, the concerns about China. So nothing about American problems. We're all about China.
Oh my gosh. And so then we need to ask ourselves, who came up with this policy of polycrisis, of multiple attacks against Western nations on several different fronts? Who was it? It was Klaus Schwab. He wrote about this in his book many times. He also made this the theme of the latest Davos annual conference. The actual title of the conference was 2023 is the year of polycrisis. He said it, and sure enough, 2023 has been polycrisis, and it's going to continue. It's going to continue to get worse And the worst part about it is what I just said, that our authorities are not allowed to investigate any of these polycrisis incidents that are occurring against the American people. That's how you know that all of our authorities have to be eradicated. They have to be eradicated because they're no longer. This is treason, basically. It's treason for them not to do their job and instead to stand down during all of these attacks that are occurring against the American people, which Klaus Schwab predicted. And as soon as he said it, and at Davos, as soon as he put forward that conference, they started happening, and they're going to get worse. That's where we are right now.
So I'll get you out of here on this, John, which is, to anybody who's maybe skeptical, I always come at everything with an open mind. I have my whole life, and I always, I want to seek the truth the whole time until I'm proven wrong about something. Show me the evidence of this. When you left the FBI under these terms about James Comey and so forth, have they come to you? Have you caused problems for them? Have they said, John, you got to stop talking about this stuff? Have you had any interaction with them where they're trying to silence you, keep you quiet?
No, not at all. They don't care about the stuff that I put out and about the material, simply because, and this is the real reason, is because the material that I put out always has the label on it of.
Okay, Mike from around the world's still 15 minutes away. So I'll just do a bit of this.
The election is going to really determine a lot of where the country. Welcome to the program today. Mano Gonzalez here in the studio, and I have through Skype Steve Quayle. Before we get to Steve, I want to remind everybody about our upcoming conference in Branson, Missouri, December 5th through 8th. It's going to be quite the conference. We're going to have over 20 speakers there. And what's interesting about it is it's going to be happening just a few weeks after the November election. So a lot of the speakers are already telling me that they don't know what their title is going to be just yet, because the election is going to really determine a lot of where the country, the direction of the country is going. So go to prophecywatchers.com, check it out. We also, if you can't be there in person, you can certainly join us through live stream. We already have over 900 people signed up for the conference.
Wow.
Lots of room there. It's a great place. So join us, prophecywatchers.com. So Steve, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you so much, Mondo. One of the things I enjoy the most about when I get to come on with you and Gary Stearman is that we've got so much understanding by the grace of God, and we can just go with the flow. And again, I'm excited because the new DVD we put out, The Gates of Hell, Earth in the Crosshair, The Gates of Hell Are Opening, it has everything to do with the multitudinous people capturing on film, UFOs, strange orbs, unusual phenomenon, from giants in Miami to giants in different places, Las Vegas. And what's happening is like a switch has turned on, Mondo, and the preternatural, the supernatural, and I would just say this, things that people have never seen before are what we're experiencing. So Earth in the Crosshairs simply means, based on the passage of Matthew where Jesus talks about the gates of hell, they're not going to prevail against the church, but a gate either lets something through or keeps something back. And for the first time in history, we've been able to basically present some of the most unusual findings that have ever been undertaken, what I call a mega adventure and a mega expedition, because I want to bring your viewers up to an interesting fact, or present an interesting fact. The underworld, as you know, in all myths, legends, and the gates of hell spoken about in Jesus, Matthew 16, but there's a theme that runs through history, that there's a whole nother world. For instance, the Epic of Gilgamesh is the oldest poetic narrative in the world, and Gilgamesh was basically half human. Now figure this one out: half human, and they claim, some people claim he was 2/3 fallen angel and 1/3 human, but it's all about the gateways and the portals to hell. So what we've been doing with the Glyph team, and this is really critical, is to be able to find every ancient symbol that we can acquire. For instance, Chinese has 116,000 characters. Sometimes in the old Chinese, 136,000. The Sumerian translated symbols are 100,000. And bring it all together, mash it all together, and imagine your computer that you're sitting at, or I'm sitting at, the studio you're in, the computer I'm on. Imagine comparing every image you've ever seen on any photographic Google, for instance, or go on, Pinterest or something, and finding all those and mashing them together through supercomputers and bringing out the language in context, the language in time, and comparing it to all the newer symbols that are in our even contemporary society. For instance, if you look at any of the symbols and imagery that are in a box, whether it's an app symbol, those things all mean something. What most people can't understand is ancient languages don't deal with nouns and verbs and consonants and conjugated this and conjugated that. Especially the Chinese, every little part of that character tells a story within a story. So our team, and this is why it's so critical for this new film, has been mashing these things together, meaning running them through supercomputers. I think we're up to 3/4 of a teraflop. Okay, that's just unimaginable. Fortunately, I'm not a computer guy, but the Lord graced me with a friendship with a triple PhD, and he put the team together, and it's all around the world. Guys in Russia, guys, I mean, literally, we got people all over. Some don't speak English. I don't speak, but my team leader does, speaks all the different languages. And so what's important is this: how is it such an apparent fact that something like a spiral would have meaning from even prior to the time of creation of Adam and Eve, after the creation of Adam and Eve, and now we're dealing with things that are preternatural, supernatural, like Skinwalker Ranch and some of the desert Southwest. And you guys have carried, Prophecy Watchers have carried Holocaustic giants. When Tom Horn was still with us, and he's passed away, of course. But that's one of the most profound videos, not because we made it. This isn't about ego, it's about information. And the opening of stargates, portals, and what the Native Americans call star people is astonishing. So getting fast forward into our period, in Earth in the Crosshairs, we have Dr. Travis Taylor, who's the lead astrophysicist on Skinwalker Ranch. Also, we've got just some amazing information on Egypt, William Henry. Egypt's fascinating because most people don't understand that Egypt on the Giza Plateau, that's one thing. It's beneath the Giza Plateau. That is where everything is happening. I'm sorry, it's Giza, G-I-Z-A. I threw an L in there. And what's astonishing is that it's reported there's 100 square mile, you're hearing me right, city of giants that was built giant. If you look at the Temple of Karnak, I don't mean to be a name dropper, but some of the biggest temples in Egypt, the pillars are so tall, even the statues are tall. And what happens if those weren't, quote, embellished size statues, but they were the real size statue? So Earth in the Crosshairs is absolutely a presentation of all the different signs, symbols, the most state-of-the-art physics, obviously quantum physics. How can you have time being all at once everywhere in the universe? We make it really easy. Most people think quantum physics, that's too hard to understand. Biblically, we know as believers, we're seated with Jesus Christ in heavenly places. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that, but in essence, Jesus said that where he is, we may be also. And especially when it comes to the heart of God. So superpositioning, and this is a fancy word for everybody can be through the redemption of Jesus. I think people think we live here, we die here, and then we shoot to heaven. In essence, I think it's a whole lot different than that. So some of the profound things that we've accomplished in Earth in the Crosshairs are the understanding of being able to give people a background on. That's one of the most obscure statements in the New Testament. The gates of hell will not prevail. Well, in every language, it doesn't matter where, they believe in hell. They believe not in the Christian concept of hell, but they know hell, no good, heaven better, you know? And so what's astonishing to me is the amount of background information we've gotten on orbs, ORBS. Some of them are actual entities. The Bible teaches that Satan is, and it says, Paul said, hey, don't be amazed that even his, Satan's angels can manifest as ministers of light. They can change their shape. So 1/3 of the angels fell and rebelled with Lucifer. Lucifer became Satan. Satan means adversary. But on earth, his worshipers, meaning those who worship the devil, he wants to be called Lucifer. He still maintains that he's God, even though he isn't. So what we've done on this in Earth in the Crosshairs is presented the evidence of the transdimensional, in other words, multidimensional interference in our human existence and how it's increasing. And I think this is what Jesus meant when he said men's hearts failing them for looking after those things.
Okay, I'll switch to Paul, guys. With a bit of luck, Diane will catch a song.
For this crooked generation.
Yeah, we got a song.
In the earth, bring down revelation. Give us now the sins of our youth. Worship be the idols that you everything but the truth. Teach us how to uncorrupt. Show us how we still have it. We need you, Yeshua. Holy, holy, hallelujah. We need you, Yeshua. Holy, holy, hallelujah. We abandon everything. We follow you, our King. We throw our gold and silver in the stream. How much will we see before the fire falls? Or could this really be the last altar call? We need to run over the doorposts of our hearts. There's Kevin Wilson. Anoint us with your fire and love as the praise and worship starts. Holy, holy, hallelujah. Think about it. We need you. Yes. Holy, holy, hallelujah. We abandon everything to follow you, our King. We throw our gold and silver in the street. Oh, we abandon everything to follow you, our King. We throw our gold and silver in the street. We're living in the last days, folks.
Wow. Britain's in a really bad spot, Diane, with all the Muslim refugees that are in there. Not just the refugees, the ones that have been there for decades, and they're taking over towns and grooming the school children, the little girls.
Follow you, our King. We don't know the sea. We abandon everything to follow you, our King.
Thank you, Jesus.
So I go and sing in the street.
Israel Hall helping me sing that one. Israel wrote the song Silver Streets. Earlier we played a song by Kevin Wilson. Of course, The Blood Is Enough. You can get the albums, my albums, 4 of mine and 4 of Kevin's, and Israel and Israel's album, Formula Jacob. Get it all at our website at publiclyprophecy.com. And just before Mike comes, oh boy, Heidi's going to beat me up if I don't do this. It's October, and she said you better tell people they've got to build their immunity. Their immune system. Guys, go to our website. Silver. It's time to get it. Take a swig. Take a swig. Okay? All right. That's not the right song. But you need to get silver. Take a swig of this every day. Build that, your immune system. Also, if you're having muscle cramp.
Mine's worked so far. I don't need that.
Or you have pain in the joints. We've got now the Silver Recover cream, and man, this is good. This is good. I mean, sometimes I get that restless leg syndrome at night, can't sleep. That'll take care of it right there. Awesome, awesome. Also, though, if there's any wounds, we got the silver gel. That's available also at our website. So you know, for any wounds or abrasions or burns, this thing is very soothing, very, very good. And some of you, you know, when you say we want to get you your immunity, your immune system stronger. This is brand new. This is a nasal spray, and okay, and you get right to it, okay. And let's fight anything off that's trying to get on us, okay. By building up our immune system, and of course, if that throat starts getting ticklish, you want to be sure you got these. These are the best. Everyone says that these are the best of it.
Okay, I'm waiting for him to start selling cornflakes.
Of anyone's. Silver lozenges with Manuka honey. They taste great, but more importantly, I mean, there's none better. Nobody makes it better. And I'm not joking when I say this. I've had the little tickle, the little sore throat thing, pop one of those in there, and I mean, it just soothes it, but it does more than that. It goes away. I don't know how to explain how that works so good. Anyway, find out all about our silver products. They're at our website at publiclyprophecy.com. It's October. We're in that time of season, so let's get ahead of it. Okay, that's what Heidi says. And if Heidi says it, then you better do it, because I don't want to get in trouble, and I don't want to be blamed that I didn't tell people about this. Mike Around the World is going to be here any moment. The apocalypse now. As we've said, sin war is dead. Is the war over? Is it? Is this it? No. Just because the head of the snake, the little snakes, are dead, just because sin war is dead and Hamas is being destroyed, Israel is going to take the entire Gaza Strip back. Just because Nassar is dead doesn't mean, in Hezbollah. What about Iran? What about Iran? Joining us right now from some location somewhere around the world, Mike from around the world.
Pastor Paul, God bless you, brother.
How are we doing? How you doing tonight, Mike?
Very good.
Wow, Mike, I'm just excited to be with you again. You know, I missed out mainly last week because I was in revival, but Heidi stepped in, did a great job. And Mike, you don't even want to know how many emails I got saying, Paul, she was awesome because she doesn't interrupt mine.
You and I said that, Diane.
She's going to be circling back. Oh, all right, Mike. Well, hey, we titled this
No, I hummed along now.
podcast Apocalypse Now. There's a couple things that I know we want to ask you about tonight for sure. The time of the harvest, and also time anomalies and things like that. But let's start with the big news that Israel has killed the leader of Hamas. Sinwar is now dead. Bibi is basically saying, we're going to finish this up. We got to get the hostages out of there. But this doesn't mean the war is over, not by any means of imagination. Israel has still not retaliated back in Iran yet. Can you just pick it up from there, Mike, and tell us where does this thing go from here? Am I wrong by saying apocalypse now?
No, Israel's estimate for this current condition would be about another 8 months to 2 years, actually. And the reason why they put the number that high is because they will retaliate against Iran. They're not going to drop that. They're going to retaliate against Iran. In fact, they had a meeting with the USA and NATO. They had to give assurances that they would not hit nuclear sites.
Okay.
Now this was a week and a half ago, about a week and a half ago. So they've already done that. The U.S. has sent, you could say, regulators, I guess you could say, over there, and there are certain assurances, and the reason why is because they know if a nuclear facility is hit, Russia they will not hesitate to retaliate.
Right.
They won't hesitate. So it's a very right now is when things really escalate. If you think this Hamas incursion and the Hezbollah incursion was a heightening of activities, well, it was not. Now we're about to see the scary part of a war, of a real war. Yeah.
Is it because okay? So we know Bibi is pretty well, he's going to mop up now the remnants of Hamas and take full control of the Gaza Strip. He's knocked out the top 13 commanders and leaders of Hezbollah. But of course, he said he's got to take back southern Lebanon and secure that. So when you say that it's not over, I guess that means there's going to be some kind of retaliation to Iran. It won't be the nuclear facilities, like you said, but are they still thinking maybe regime change with Iran?
They have quite a few things. And did you hear that loud rain?
I did.
Okay. They have quite a few things in motion right now. And one of the big things is in the retaliation. Everybody has to remember it looks like it could be coming to a close. That's what it looks like. First of all, with Hamas, it is very difficult to tell who Hamas actually is. It's very difficult to tell. That population in Gaza has been dispersed all over the place. You have a lot of these Hamas soldiers have been 13 years old, 12, 13, so on and so forth. The people of Gaza are so full of malice concerning Israel that everybody's ready to pick up a weapon. That's number one. So there is this Hamas issue is by no means over. Now they're going to have much more fierce people because those people lost in their eyes. They see Israel as this entity who has killed everybody in their families. They have seen their families suffer. They don't know. It's almost like an abusive person in a home, right? They abuse the family members see that abuse, but the outside world does not see the abuse, right? And so in Gaza, these folks, all they know is that Israel has destroyed their family, was ruthless in their assaults against their own people. That's all they know. They don't know the story. They don't know the narrative. They don't know the history. All they see is Israel as a monster. Yeah. Same thing with those in Lebanon. Same thing. So now we're about to have we have those people who, by those activities that began to take place on October 7th, they're
Okay, Phil. Good night, mate. God bless.
Than to allow Israel.
Prayers for Hunter, mate.
So now you have a brand new type enemy out there, right? A brand new type enemy. Right. And they are, believe me, it's going to cause some issues. Now we have the Iranian question. When they strike Iran, the world is going to say it was an overreach. This is when we get to see the world turn on Israel. Because to hit Iran means you have to hit strategic targets, right?
Yes.
Now they said they're only going to go after leadership. Here's the problem with that. You know, and I know that they're going to announce to the world that Israel hit civilian centers.
Yes, they're going to
That
say
Israel did this, that, and the other. And the world continues to hear this. Now, it worked with the Palestinians. It worked. The world believed a big lie. All people had to do was see the people, some of the footage that they were trying desperately to take off the internet, where actors would go and lay down real quick, right? Hamas had an iron grip on the people, and lots of actors were involved.
Yes.
So Iran is very good at doing the same thing. You still have the Houthis. You still have you have quite a few groups out there that are so dispersed. When they begin to hit Iran, the world's going to call foul on Israel. They will ultimately be disarmed. Period. It looks like they're going to win. Benjamin Netanyahu is not going to stop until he has a secure nation. He understands that in order for Israel to be secure, he has to get rid of the big guy, the guy who's paying for all these terrorist organizations, and to collapse some of that support chain, right? But here's the issue: to do that to Iran, to take out their leadership, means to dissolve, right? Their some of the high-ranking personnel that deal directly with Russia.
Yes, because
so in other words, Israel cannot take out the leadership of Iran without destroying the relationship between Iran and Russia. And by the way, some of the folks in Iran are Russian generals, Russian politicians, right? So this is going to be tricky, and we all know what's going to happen. This is going to turn into this is a power cave. It's going to turn into a bigger situation.
So in other words, this year is really kind of a warm up to what's really coming. I mean, because Israel is I think determined to take the Ayatollah Khomeini. He's the guy responsible. They're looking right at him and saying, "You're the guy, and you are using the resources of your nation to fund all this terrorism toward us."
I'll give Paul this. He's pretty spot on there.
It's the Houthis, Hezbollahs, the Hamas, the Islamic Jihad, the Syrians, and everybody else. And so you got to know that Bibi is looking straight at it and says, "You know what? We got to," and that's so big because, as you're saying, if you go after the Ayatollah Ali Khomeini, the whole Islamic world will go up in flames and rage. Am I wrong by that? I mean, Turkey's already itching to get in. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I think some of the financial support. Listen, $1 trillion came from Iran and was dispersed throughout the Middle East. I'm sorry, it was $3.2 trillion.
Wow.
Okay, that happened in less than probably a 2-month period. They're about to do it again. Now, somebody's lying, somebody's hiding the true facts about who has money and where, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, they don't say anything about, you look at some of these Middle Eastern places, and you start to see these projects where, $800 billion is spent to lay a foundation in the middle of the desert. $900 billion on this irrigation system, and then another $1.1 trillion to reborder some of the nations that are in the middle.
Yeah, the crown prince is Shiite and the others are Sunni, or it's the other way around. No, Shia or Sunni. They don't like each other, like Catholics and Protestants.
Please. And then you find out that Iran is making a lot of money, right? Things start tracing down, but it's a big financial mess. There are lots of lies involved, lots of propaganda. So it's very difficult to.
I bet they stopped I lost my train of thought.
Capture the truth.
I bet they stopped investing in walkie-talkies and pages.
Released by anybody's news. But Iran has a lot of money. They have a lot of resources, more resources than than what the public knows. Because we hear, in the West, all they're going to hear is filtered propaganda. They're not going to hear anything in favor of Iran. So they're doing all this. If Israel attacks Iran, then every country who is surviving or thriving by Iran is going to turn against Israel. And I'm telling you right now, there are lots of nations who have indignation against Israel. They have a deep-rooted hatred. They do not believe Israel is the rightful, folks of that land.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's going to come. That's already coming up. It's coming up and shattered. In fact, some of the fighting is in the name of a holy war already, right?
Yeah.
Russia is naturally going to be pulled in. If they attack Iran, Russia's already going to be a part. I think that's made obvious by Putin's intervention by statements saying, you got to watch. You can't attack their nuclear sites.
What about
he also
oil?
expanded that. He expanded that.
Okay.
He already said the oil. He said you can't touch the oil. And then he added some more. You can't touch. So he's going to continue to do this.
Shawnee, I said to him, has anyone got Ella's walkie-talkie number? He's not answering his pager. And jeez, they got mad at me.
And he's quite serious. He's ready to act. He's ready to act. So, because you're having some of the Asian forces who will engage the Ukraine, right?
Right.
They're going to engage Ukraine, and some of the Islamic forces from Syria will engage with the Korean forces against the Ukraine, while Putin concentrates on this Middle Eastern the expansion of war. And China is going to make the move right in the middle of it because they're becoming a financier of the whole thing. They have, somebody's lied big time. And as I said before, bluffs are going to be called. Bluffs are going to be called. People are going to finally find out who is who, and they're not going to like what the results are. Right? When all this becomes disclosed, they're going to feel betrayed. They're going to feel, backstabbed. Is lots of betrayal is coming.
How do you?
And these lies, when they come out, it's going to cause people to rethink their entire view of global politics and everything else.
Wow.
Does this election, Mike? How big is this as it relates to this geopolitical, the whole Middle East and the Ukraine and Russia war? Does it matter which one of these people are in?
Great question, Paul.
Well, yes. Oh, yes, it does. Even right now, right? Everybody knows that based on who would become the U.S. president, they're going to have to make strategic moves right now before that ever happens. If Trump gets in,
and didn't Zelensky meet with Trump? Was it Zelensky who met with Trump? Pretty sure it was.
Power, they feel that Trump is winning. I'm telling you right now, these Middle Eastern countries are going to go for broke and do everything they can do to position themselves because they understand that Trump is he's a business guy, but he's also quite stern, right? And he does not deviate.
No,
he is a hard ass. You've got to give it to Trump.
Once he sets his mind on something, he won't deviate. They understand that. That's the one thing they can never contend against. And so he has no soft spots either, right?
No.
So they understand that too.
Yeah, they did, Shawnee.
If they feel he's going to win this election, they're going to have to escalate all their plans to make sure that they happen before he gets into office.
So from November 5th till January 20th in the swearing in of the ex-president, even if we know that, let's say Trump wins the election, now you got to go through the process, the transition process. There's going to be some things that happen. Do you think in that 60 days it just could be on the brink of World War III? I mean,
yeah, I think we are right now, more than what people realize. Right now, we're in the brink of World War.
We don't have that transitional thing happening. If a government gets voted out, the other prime minister takes over immediately. There's no signing over or anything like that. They just take over immediately. Sort of like Britain.
Well, I would say that World War III has already started.
Yeah.
It's just that it's not hit our front door yet.
Yeah,
See,
it's
this time
everywhere else.
America's not going to be, left alone in this. That's not going to happen. We have targets on our East Coast. We have targets in the Midwest. We have targets on the West Coast, but more on the East Coast than anywhere else, right? We are known as the greatest defense in this holy war that they're having. This is what they're actively talking about. America, listen, they're saying that America has to be on fire for them to successfully take out Israel.
Yeah.
We have to be on fire. America has to be burning. Can they make that happen? Yes, they can. Have they been working at this? Yes, they have. Non-stop. And believe me, all agencies are quite aware of this. It is the paranoia is off the scale.
And so, if Harris wins, what does that mean? How does the world react to that?
Normally I don't take sides, right?
I know.
Diane, electric cars. If you're stupid enough to buy one, you deserve the battery blowing up on you. They're not feasible. It's not workable yet.
I'm just saying.
Maybe they can make the electricity cars work one day, but at the moment they're not really doing it.
I'm saying something here that I tell you, in my opinion, when somebody changes their opinion about things just to gain ground in the minds of people, that's no good. And in my opinion, Harris she won't answer the simple things. She just won't do that. The rest of the world sees this. They also see that she'll change.
Depending who she's talking to.
That's no good either, right?
No.
Because when a person stands for their own position, like hers, she had some positions she stood for a long time ago, and people just want to know the contrast between her then and now. All she has to do is say, "I changed my mind," just like J.D. Vance did, just like Trump did. And people may not like these folks, right? They may not like them, but they are who they are. That's who we have to elect from.
Right.
But the Middle Eastern faction will not respect a woman, period. They're not going to do it. To have a woman sit as president is an automatic.
Wow, I never thought of that. Because the Muslims wouldn't like that, would they? Wow, good pickup.
But that's an automatic offense to the entirety of the Middle East.
Wow.
It's just not going to bode very well. They're not going to listen to a female, period. They're just not going to.
I know.
They don't respect that. It infuriates them. It does, especially in Saudi Arabia. And unfortunately.
Wow, that's really important, that, because the Muslim men, they won't accept Kamala. She's a girl. Wow, that's a really good pickup. I never even thought of that angle, but it's a good angle.
We need, we can't do it alone. No. Unless we exhaust our military, we need some sort of cooperation between these certain people in these places. If a woman gets into power, any woman, it doesn't matter who, any woman gets into power, these Middle Eastern nations are not going to recognize that authority over them. They're not going to do it. And more people they're going to start with, I tell you what, Fastball, when the missiles fly, and if U.S. soil is hit, that's going to make it real. That's going to make it real.
Oh, yeah.
And people are going to stand up and say, "Oh no." They're going to say no.
And them solar panels, they've got farms of solar panels where there's like hundreds of solar panels in the ground. That's really ruining the environment. That's no good for the environment. It's a lot worse than coal.
We can't have this. We can't do it.
And these batteries, they stay batteries for millions of years. They don't rot.
This. We just simply can't do this. There are more and more people now who are becoming well versed in geopolitics, and they're starting to find out that this situation is not going to work out too well, right?
This is huge, as you're saying, Mike. You're dropping bombs tonight. I mean,
well, they're starting to find it out.
Yeah, I mean, people are starting to feel it and feel the pressure, aren't they? Is that why? Again, it's so hard to believe. You can't believe the media and the polls and all that. But you can almost step outside and put your finger in the air, you can feel the shift taking
You
place.
do, and
toward
you
Trump.
know what? Yeah, and I'm a neutral guy.
We call that the pub test. If that idea passes the guys at a pub, it's legit. Otherwise, it's thrown out.
Right.
I mean, I have my pick, but I never want to sway the opinion of anybody else's. So I take this neutral stance. I think it's important for me to do that so people can do what the Lord instructs them to do.
Right.
But Pastor Paul, there's something brewing that is well,
the deal
it's really it really affects the entire world this time. And sometimes all times are not convenient for all choices. They're just not.
I've got some information, and I've been very reluctant. I've had it for a while, and I've been very reluctant to even bring it up. And maybe I shouldn't bring it up, but
yeah,
I did get an email that something that's circulating out there from the DOD, and of course this could be just clickbait, but it's as if there is this very high level of concern of some type of rioting or
there is
revolution if things don't go the way.
There is.
Is this a real deal? And
that's a real deal.
And I'm hearing there's standing orders.
That's a real deal.
For the military to actually act upon American people. Is that part of this?
We have with information comes a lot of counter information.
That's true.
Right?
Right.
And so, but I'll tell you something. Since the beginning of this election, when Biden announced.
Yeah, Shawnee, that's what I was talking to you about yesterday when you mentioned you took her on on a live chat. I thought you were talking about a Fox News interview, but you were talking about a CNN interview. I haven't actually seen the Fox interview yet, but I did hear she made an idiot of herself.
To everybody,
as usual.
This is serious, right? And this is dangerous. That's what
Charcoal.
Biden said. He kept saying that.
Yep.
Then policies came out, right? And it gave command authority to a different entity to do a different thing within the USA. Is when you do it was real. When policy comes out to give command authority, when that command authority changes or is expanded to deal with a new situation, then it's already in stone. So they have a reaction plan and a containment plan, right?
Yep.
And they may have to put things in because militias are rising, right?
Right.
This is happening now. I hate to say this, but militias are rising, and there's already been some incursions between the government and these militias. It's already happened. Folks have already died from this, and so it's a serious thing. They're just not going to put that out there yet.
This week, when Trump mentioned the enemy from within.
Hey guys, what about the Mendez brothers? What about that? They might be getting released. Wow.
He's talking about politicians.
He is, isn't he? He's talking about the governing politician level.
Yeah.
These dug-in politicians who continue to involve themselves in government. Some people have nothing to do with the government. Yeah. They're always.
Shawnee,
always seem to
we can be the troll twins.
alter government opinions, and they have stooges in there, right? Some of these billionaires do that. Billionaires have lobbyists who go in there, they attach themselves as senators, and you can't separate the two unless they enforce a policy by the military or put Washington on lockdown. I know I would certainly do it. I'd lock them all right there in Congress, and nobody else would affect anything from that point on, right?
Right.
Just to keep the lobbyists out, because what's happening is you have America's ruled by corporate ideology right now.
Right.
Nobody. This isn't the government is not. They're certainly not ruling based on care. That's not what they're ruling from.
No.
They're not ruling based on care.
Or the will and the needs of the people. That's not a priority.
Well, let's face it. The institution itself has become a severe abomination. Now look at the laws they pass. God, our Father in heaven, would not approve of what they're doing in Washington. That stuff is an abomination. And when they start changing the minds of a 6-year-old That is absolutely disgusting.
Right.
It is. It was an abomination to the Father in the beginning. It is right now. They're doing nothing more than expanding these abominable things.
Wow.
So change is coming quickly, and everything is a witness to that change.
Amen.
I tell you now, Satan hates it. He hates it with a passion.
Yep.
He does.
All right. Now, Mike, we've got some other areas to talk about. Here, I'm going to show you a picture, Mike. You can see it. I'm sure you got a little delay, but you'll see it. This picture was sent to me from BP Earthwatch. This is the skies in Mexico.
Johnny, you haven't got Facebook, have you? Because I troll them on Facebook. Science versus religion, but it's really atheist versus religion.
Red. I mean, that is in Mexico. So what in the world's going on? I mean, these auroras tonight are going to be pretty spectacular. They have been for the last couple weeks. I was talking to Bishop Larry Ragland. I was in Birmingham, Alabama, and just 3 or 4 days before I got there came this incredible auroras all the way down to Birmingham. And he took pictures with his iPhone from his deck on the back of his house. And it was some of the most spectacular things I've ever seen in my life. The colors were brilliant. It's amazing. And look at the sky behind me, Mike. That's Mexico. How in the world? What's going on?
That makes my stomach drop. I'll tell you why. Long time ago, right? I saw this whole scene before. The whole thing. People were taking pictures at sunset, and they did not understand what that meant. You know, scientifically, this is what people are seeing is collision and excitation. It's when solar particles collide with atoms in the Earth's atmosphere, oxygen and nitrogen. And when they collide, they emit, these different gases emit different wavelengths of color. And that depends on the, molecule involved. The energy difference is the excitation, which causes these colors. For example, oxygen, right? It emits a green or brownish red light, and variations in between. Ionized nitrogen emits blue or purple to red light, right? So a lot of what I see in that picture is actually nitrogen. Now remember, 70%, a large percentage of the air we breathe is nitrogen. And when solar winds hit those molecules and they're ionized, they cause that color. That's the bad news. That's the bad news. Solar winds should not be hitting, right?
No, that shouldn't be hitting
the atmosphere like that. And so that indicates we have some issues in our protective layer. It's not protecting us too well, because when people start seeing this all over the earth, I hope they understand that's radiation just leaking in. It's just coming in all over the place.
It's beautiful. It's spectacular, but it's deadly. Is that what you're saying? I mean,
it's a deadly indicator. It's a deadly indicator that we are in trouble, because listen, we're soon to go into a chaotic, our magnetosphere is going to turn chaotic. When it's chaotic, it's going to be holes all throughout the magnetosphere. It will not be organized. Magnetic field lines of force are going to be going all over the place. That means radiation will drip down to the surface. It means that the chemical composition of some items on Earth are going to instantly change. It means some of that collision excitation will be no more than 10 feet from the ground. It means that people are going to be sickened in a few areas. And it also means fires, right? High heat. This is going to build up, get stuck in the atmosphere. When that happens in the atmosphere, as it did in 2004, it's stuck within the region of the Earth, heating up everything, right? So it gets stuck below the atmosphere. It doesn't escape too well.
When you say fires, I mean, are fires just going to break out worse than the wildfires we've been seeing?
Because you're looking at, imagine a day where you have 60% humidity, right?
Okay.
All of a sudden you have a chaotic ionosphere. Then your humidity, because of those holes, that radiation is going to drop very low to the surface. So it'll go from 60% to 2%.
That's real dry. Man, that's real
there
dry.
You go.
Shawnee, I tried to load the links on Facebook here, but it won't let me.
There you go.
That could ignite.
That's right. just a car driving down the street, something can ignite at 2% humidity. So that's what you're looking at also.
What?
Pressure changes is going to cause a lot of steam on the coastlines, right? So you're looking at a real change in our, the entire biosphere, right? And we're getting, it's just not going to be good.
Okay, now that isn't part of the ash environment you talk about, is it? I mean, that's a different reason, right? I mean, volcanoes or.
Yeah, that'll be volcanoes. The ash, I'm sure the fires are going to contribute, right? Okay. Because we saw that with Australia, and what was that? 2000 and the big fires they had where the whole country was on fire.
17 or 18.
Ash was falling all throughout the USA. People would wake up with black ash on their cars. They didn't know where it came from. They analyzed it. It came from Australia. So you definitely see that again. With all this solar activity also is causing the dormant volcanoes to become that much more active. Under the ocean, there have been at least 8 more regions of volcanic activity that have just lit up in the last week. And so the waters are going to heat up also, even more than they have been, right? So Earth is certainly changing. Isn't it ironic that the Earth is changing, and so is mankind as far as their morals?
Yes.
It's just getting rough.
It's a parallel. There's a parallel consider.
Absolutely.
And the animals are going nuts. I mean,
yes, they are.
I'm just telling about how there's a leopard in India that's now killed 8 people. This one leopard. And it has a thirst for blood. And there's other animals doing weird.
And crows. Crows have been attacking. Yeah, they've been attacking people in the Appalachian chain. Crows have been attacking, and crows are the most intelligent bird on the planet. They can mimic your voice, my voice. They can do anything we can do just about, but they're starting to attack people.
That's crazy.
It's a known fact that if you do anything to a crow, it will go out and teach the other birds that you are a danger to them.
No way.
It will even teach its young people to identify you. And every time you come around, those crows are going to
shocking, Diane. That's shocking.
And they will go after you. Yeah, they'll go after you. But they've been doing this to people for people who have had no interaction with crows.
Right.
Now, the knowledge that one crow has can spread throughout all of them. Right. So that's not a good situation. Can you imagine a big group of crows that's against human beings?
No, Mike, no. I mean, the crows, they're crows. And you're saying a crow.
And what do you call a flock of crows? A murder of crows. So, and the Vikings used to use crows. So they've always been a symbol of evil.
Crows, they know who to go after. I mean.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They had an experiment. They had one guy that harassed a crow in a tree, right? And a bunch of people in the park. The crows were fine. This one guy walked in and they remembered who he was, and all of them went berserk and they went right after him. Wow. He leaves, they go back to normal. As soon as he comes back in, they start giving that little alarm and they go after him so they can remember faces. They remember your face, your body motions, everything. They are highly intelligent. I mean, highly.
Crows can put pebbles in a milk bottle of water. If the water's not reaching the top, they'll put pebbles in the bottle and make the water rise so they can drink. They're very intelligent, and they actually can use tools.
Wow. Mike, I'm going to ask another question. This one's been, came to us. We're hearing that there's troops, U.S. troops have been deployed into Mexico to fight the cartels. I don't know if these are special ops or what. Is there anything going on here with U.S. troops deployed covertly or quietly or secretly into Mexico?
Better that come out by itself, right? Because it is against, because it's with the cartels, they're saying, right?
Yes,
but,
yes.
Better for that story to evolve by itself, because you have concurrent operations that take place in Mexico with the USA, right? So anybody in the intelligence field is just simply not going to cover that subject openly like that, because it would put it would just alert too many things.
Well, there's a lot of
It would
mayors.
just, you know,
I mean, there's been 3 mayors in Mexico killed in the last 7 days. I mean,
Wow.
and I know that happens a lot with these drug cartels, but you know, they're getting, and they're vicious.
Mexico is such a crazy country. It's completely lawless.
They're violent. They're beheading people. But you're saying we better let that dog lie?
Yeah, let it come out by itself, because when the governors in the USA began to announce their declarations of their recommendations concerning the border, that story will come out. Maybe not all of it, but it will. Keep in mind, in Mexico, it was reported that that's where those containers were, full of troops, Chinese troops.
Yes,
right?
yes, that's right.
Mexico, that's where some of the military bridge equipment was, the docking equipment was, where you bring these amphibious vehicles made from China onto the land. So there are lots of things happening in Mexico. It's better to let that story evolve. But I tell you what, that border is a real problem.
It
And it has to do I know immigration is a big deal, but that border is a big problem.
We don't have a handle of it, and we America does not have a handle. I don't even think we're in control of it anymore. I think maybe the drug cartels are in charge of it now. I don't know, but it's a big problem. I agree with you, Mike. Last week, Heidi talked to you, and you guys got on the subject of time.
Okay, I thought
Yeah,
I remember he said something to talk about next week. I forgot what it was, and this is it. So yeah.
Things. One thing is you made a statement a few weeks ago that you knew the time of the harvest, and you said, "Oh boy, let's talk about that next week." So
no, magpies. Okay.
Thinks we should talk about
I'll show you something.
time anomalies. But which one? The time of the harvest. When you say you know the time of the harvest, can you help us understand where you're going with that?
Yeah, the time of the harvest.
Of souls?
Harvest of harvest. How about I save that one for the very end?
Okay, let's do that. What about time anomalies then? How about time anomalies?
Those are real. Those are quite real. First of all, mankind has been messing with stuff for a long time, right? I mean, a long time. So your audience can get involved with this. Many people out there in your audience, they're called to the Lord, but they also have had experiences when they were small. And some of them have experienced something called fast chatter. I'm going to call it fast chatter.
Okay.
Which means when they were small, it was as if they were sitting there doing whatever they were doing. And all of a sudden they started to hear super fast, like people talking real fast around them, right? It was very faint and it would come in very fast. Real fast chatter. Then it would leave. Then it would just go away. But while they were doing this, it was almost like
These magpies dive at every spring. Every spring they protect their nests and they dive bomb you. People are really scared of them. As a kid, we used to tease them and make them chase us.
light, high-ring buzzing that they would also hear accompanying that fast chatter, right? That fast chatter, by the way, is real. And what that is perception. It happens to young people a lot because sometimes they just don't think about anything when you're young. You kind of zone out for a minute, right? That's
right.
Exactly what
Just
it
go
happens.
with the flow. Just go with the flow, you know.
Right. A lot of young people, they go through that moment. Now they won't tell you about that fast chatter. Like somebody talking real fast, they can hear it and it builds up, and then goes away. All that has to do with perception. Now keep that in mind while I explain this.
Okay.
There's something called hypertime. I'm going to call it hypertime.
Hypertime.
It's when you begin to analyze things. And it seems like everything is in slow motion.
Okay.
Right.
Diane, I actually
Now,
was. As a kid, I was always the ringleader getting people in trouble. That's why I knew I was going to go to jail. I knew it was in my destiny as a kid. That's why I joined the army, to try and avoid going to jail. But I even done time in an army jail as well.
If you can induce yourself, and some people can do this naturally, Oh, that boxers do it a lot. Kickbox, when I was in kickboxing, I used to do that a lot. It used to happen, right? So it feels like everything's in slow motion.
Time
That's what it feels
dilation.
like.
Time dilation. I've had that.
Okay, they do in it.
Okay, Bart will know what I'm talking about. I've posted a channel here that's impossible, and it shows glitches and all that, and it shows people videoing a plane stopped in midair. Me and Gabe were going down to visit my daughter, and there's an airport near me, and as we passed the airport, we saw a plane, and it was stopped in midair, just like they're saying. Guys, I don't tell lies about this. I've got no reason to say lies about this. We saw the plane frozen in midair and for about 4 or 5 seconds, and then it took off again. So that's the time slip they're talking about, because that's what I thought. What could do that? It had to be some sort of time slip, and he's talking about it here.
And just like if a person gets in an accident,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
They can remember. Here's a funny part though. They can remember the scratches on their dashboard, pieces of glass. They can see everything because everything slows down. The truth is, you think fast. That's being hyper-minded. You think fast. Taking that element of time away, what's actually happening, because the brain exerts no energy at all doing this. And none. This is what they found out. In fact, your brain is naturally like that. But there's a component that slows your brain down, right? It's just like for runners. A runner can go out in the morning and run, and when they come back, their music sounds slow. And I'm sure that people have gone through this. When they run, they get their music. Everything sounds slower, and then as they calm down, the tones of the music go back to normal. But when they're running and when they first get back and hear the TV, it's like the music is slow, the tones are slow, people are talking in slow motion. It's because they themselves are starting to let go. When you start to let go, you enter into a different phase of thought, a different phase of observation, right? We limit our own time exists for us. I strongly believe that now. Even man has these anti-gravity, for example.
Okay.
Anti-gravity is intimately tied to time. In fact, they don't call it anti-gravity. That's what people call it. That's not what they call it. So time, they try to put philosophy with time so people get all messed up. But in fact, time is just a person observing everything around them at a recognizable speed, you could say. And it's something that human beings do outside of the body, right? If a person is unconscious or something like that, their brain starts doing something else.
Okay.
In your dreams, something else happens. You can dream, you can be stuck in a dream for a month, and only 2 minutes would have gone.
Oh, I
you
know.
You can retain all the knowledge of 2 months.
You remember Ken Peters, The Great Tribulation? He was in the dream state for 4 months or something like 4 months, but it was only overnight in his sleep.
Well, you can do that normally also, right? If you can take off the limiters. So which means some people have an innate ability to take off the limiters. Limiters, that's right. Stubbornness is tied to our limitation.
Okay.
It's just like faith. Faith is believing, yes, that's part of it, but faith is also accepting. It's just not believing, it's accepting, right?
Yeah.
If you believe in something but you don't accept it, the truth is you don't believe it at all.
No, that's right. That's right.
When you accept something, you expect it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes a part of your reality. So then faith itself is that you're expecting it because it's your norm. It becomes your norm. It's not outside your norm. It's not something extra you have to do. It becomes a part of your reality. Time, when it's observed this way, when you need it, when you have to do something like that, you take off the limiters. You begin to go past, these doubts that we have. You know how we stop ourselves at everything and say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's what we say.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, wait a
We
minute.
slow ourselves down.
Yeah.
Now, if you take all that away, you just simply observe, right? That's when your observation of time changes. Scientifically, they had messed with this through magnetism and high voltage. right? Which has caused
Really?
some irreversible accidents, some good, some bad. The Germans, in part of the Vril society, is where that science came from. The women with the long hair, right?
Yeah.
They actually had craft. They actually had and started to produce a technology that nobody understood, which is why Project Paperclip existed. They bought all that stuff over here, right?
Yep.
But these guys, they were messing around with vortices, electrons, and protons. Same thing they do at CERN. Now, what did that do? Well, they made some items they made steel become translucent, right? They also caused certain objects to show up at our present time that vanished back in that time, yet they existed at that time. They've seen through portholes. Each person will see something differently, right?
Right.
For example, there's a project where a person will look through this hole. That person would see something very unique to them. Everybody who looked through it would see something very unique to them. But this wasn't made up, this was real. But they were seeing in the future. And every time they looked at that hole, it would alter slightly based upon whatever they were looking at.
Is it because
it was almost like they were seeing possibilities, but it was real. It wasn't fake. They took photos, right? And everybody could see similar things, but it was slightly different for each person that looked in it. And they were actually seeing something else, almost like they were seeing into another dimension.
Yeah.
Right?
Is it because they were blocking? Is it because they're blocking everything else out?
No. They did this scientifically. This was a device they actually were playing with.
Okay.
Right. That device, by rumor, ended up killing about 800 people.
No.
Because it was essentially like a collider, a particle collider. Right.
Sorry.
That's what it essentially did it. And it wasn't like CERN itself. In the middle of CERN, right? Not the acceleration tube, not the collision container, but in the center of that experiment, where they don't list anything. You see these rings in the center of those rings, offset to the bottom right. In this little device, that's where it was, offset to the bottom right. CERN is set up just like that little device. And in that bottom right, they would see a suggested future, different to each person that looked at it. Right? So
wow, suggested future. That's interesting.
They can actually peer into different things. Now, they set up CERN, they did peer into different dimensions already. Some scientists have been put in the cuckoo house. They won't let them out of
after they
pending some psychological review. Some people are.
I did know that.
They're looking into different dimensions, and
because a lot of people can't. If you looked into a glass and you saw your family 10 years older than what they were, you saw your little girl totally grown up, or you saw something like that, some people can't take that.
No,
because it's the way it's described is not looking like, it doesn't look like a TV screen. It looks like more like you stuck your head out of a real window, looking into a real space, and you see things that are just, you shouldn't be seeing them. That's how it's described. It's not it does not look like a video screen. It looks more like a window.
Is it like
you poke your head?
It's like you're traveling, you can see into time, or you're traveling in a time machine, or you're just able to look.
You can see into the
future. Okay.
You can see into the future. Now, if they have perfected anything like this, but the dynamics of it, who knows? But if they did something like this, do you not realize how they could manipulate everything they wanted to manipulate? Can you imagine no one would have a chance. No one would have a chance. So anyway, that was one of those. Somebody says or the past. No, it was only the future, never the past. They never looked into the past.
They never look back at the past. It's always the future.
Always the future.
And so it's kind of prophetic in a way. I mean, always looking ahead, always looking into the future, but actually seeing something taking place before it actually takes place.
Like, for example, there's something that was found as they dug into the ground, and I hope that certain OSI members back in the time come forward to say something about it, but only a person with certain type DNA can get through it. It's a library that was here on this earth. and you sit in this little chamber. Once you go past the first chamber, you sit in the second chamber. And it has access to everything. It's kind of like our computers today, right? Except it has no interface. No interface that you can touch or anything. It's like a mental interface. The same junk that Elon Musk is working on right now, which comes out in November, by the way, right? Some of the mind reading chips, which come out November 2024. Those things, you know, the BCI devices, where you have certain states now, they got to pass laws this month in October against what comes out in November.
It's coming out
You know,
November.
like devices like those. Yeah, November 2024. Certain devices that allow one person to talk to another one mentally. Those devices.
What?
You know, that can read the thoughts of another person. And so they don't want police officers reading thoughts of people. And so certain states are passing laws where they cannot do this. Right? All this has to happen before November 2024. Yeah, so they're debating those laws, getting those laws together now in October 2024, because those
Just a month
devices are
away.
real and coming out.
Yeah.
Right.
Just a month away. All right.
So
Anyway, that's going to mess things. I don't want to. Okay, I'm going to wait till I try to even comprehend that. What about?
So back to the.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, back to this library piece. If that was similar to what they were doing with this little device they had, you know, looking into the future, except this library would allow you to see everything that happened here on the earth. That's where this story, you know, how there's a story out there. There's a set of stories out there where people said they have seen the real Christ in the past, right?
Yeah.
That's where that story comes from. That's like a rumor from.
That's a chronovision. That's what they're talking about. The Vatican's got a chronovision, and apparently there's footage, a photo of Jesus, and apparently it's Nicodemus. I don't know how true it is.
A rumor of something real. Now they have OSI people who will come forward and tell the world about this in time. They will. Just like they're disclosing UFO stuff. You cannot disclose the UFO topic without telling about time. And it just so happens that there are certain people who are, I guess you could say, they're in tune with all this. That's like me. It's funny when people talk about time because I don't really perceive time that well.
No,
I don't.
Heidi don't either.
And I can't wear a watch. I don't change the time on computers because guess what? I never allow a phone to be near me. I can't have a phone near me for other reasons. But I don't perceive time that well. Like what's new to me last year is new today. Right? It's very new. So nobody gets old to me. How about that? That's fun. It's almost like nothing gets boring.
I see. Everything is brand new. Every day's a new day.
Yeah.
Every day's a new day with my friend of the world, right? I mean, every day's a new day. Maybe we need more of that. I mean, all of us could probably use that.
But some people, now the other part of this is this. Some people in certain areas were exposed to certain things here in the USA and in Germany and I believe parts of the UK. It just so happens that if a person was born in those areas, certain areas, they're going to have these residual effects that take place in the brain, which frankly nobody can understand. Which means they will have a real effect on physical principles, right? Just like a person, there are people right now who can walk under street lights, and those street lights will blow out. If they're halogen lights, they will blow out every single time. There are folks who, if they get irritated in their homes, all their light bulbs will blow out. All of them will blow out.
Wow.
LEDs will start blinking and everything else. This is part of what's naturally in them, right? And your body can produce electrically. Your body can produce enough voltage to kill somebody else in a fraction of a second. Think about that.
That's amazing.
So if a person has had, and it really takes a person who has had super high states of emotion and super low states of emotion. Those people, right, have been very close to something they don't even know of. And emotion itself is the key that unlocks that ability to affect things around emotion. It is a key. Now I'm just overreaching, but I can almost guarantee that folks, if anybody is like Heidi, they safeguard their emotions, almost like it's an emergency. It's a real critical issue that they safeguard their emotions, which means they're holding back. They have to suppress their emotions more than the average person.
Really?
Now, it could be overreach. It could be overreach, but I'm just saying by observation.
I don't think
that
have the ability
that could be
to,
part of that deal.
you know, Heidi is a brilliant, here we are talking about Heidi, but brilliant mind where she can be thinking about like 10 different things at once and actually be causing those things to be moving at the same time and yet never lose track of any of those things.
You know, I die.
You know what I'm saying, Mike? I mean, beyond ability to do few things. I'm talking about 10 to 15 different things at once without even really showing any emotion. And you don't know if she's stressed out about this or not, or is she? So for me, you know, for us simple people, you know, one thing at a time, Mike. I mean, I just slow down and get that right. But you're saying that people who have the ability to do this with exceptional brains also can control the emotional part of themselves, because if they don't,
Well, they have a higher emotional state. They end up having to suppress their emotion. It's kind of like everybody has a natural innate ability to sense everybody around them, right? But they don't know it.
Yeah,
Your
I agree
point
with
in
that.
case,
Yes.
something simple point case. If somebody's staring at you, you will turn around and look at them.
Absolutely.
Now, normal people don't really observe that to find out what that is, but they know what that is, right? They know that's from the brain. They also know some other things, and emotions are a big part of that. When anybody goes through trauma, for example, every time you have a heightened state of emotions, your level goes up and it never goes back down again. So the worse traumatic time you go through, the higher the state of emotions that have gone through your body. That's like pure energy, right? And it never goes back down again. So you get, you know, the greater the trauma, the higher the level. Now, these people, when they go through those high level states, they actually release things themselves. They do things themselves. They also have a strong influence on other people, and they can also sense other people, right? Because the more emotion that flows through you, the higher the level of, I guess you could say, a power that can flow through you, right?
Right.
So whether it be traumatic, whether it be, you know, in the other spectrum, is still your body never goes down from being exposed to a high state of emotion. So anybody who's about to die, who's going through that scary time, they have their level has gone way up there. And as it goes way up there, let's just say that your body is always in balance. The more it can hold, it's going to hold, right?
Now, when a person has this ability, can we control our dreams to some degree? Do you ever get in a dream where you actually start debating and like trying to control the dream? Can we do that?
You can, yeah, you can. You can.
Yeah, I think I have done that several times. I mean, just like,
you can. I guarantee a lot of your people, they fly in their dreams, which means something, by the way, but they fly. But, well, put it this way, in the beginning, when people have scary dreams, they're trying to run away, it feels like your feet are in peanut butter or something, right?
Yeah.
You can't do it. But the moment you look back, you no longer have dreams like that, right? As you get older, you're more of an observer in your dreams.
Oh, you're almost like a third person. You're like a third person. You're watching. You might even be watching yourself and others, but you're like
you're an observer.
Yeah. That must be. I'm getting old. Yeah. I see that a lot of times. Sometimes
you also have genetic memories. Genetic memories can come through your dreams, which means, suppose you have a dream and you're somebody else, but you know the people around you, but you never met them before. That's a genetic dream.
Yeah.
So think of a dream where you somehow genetically recall some genetic memory or instinct of your great grandfather. Right? Okay. That happens sometimes.
Is it because it's coming to the DNA? To the genetically?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just like the instincts of an animal, so do we have memories. We have memories in the instruction of our bodies. We have memories in these bodies. So biologically, you could have memories going all the way back to the beginning.
Okay, I'm gonna make a confession. You ready for this, Mike? Tell me if I'm nuts, if I'm crazy. You know, there's 10,000 people here or whatever there is. I don't know why I would do this, but here I go. And I know somebody's gonna say I don't believe a word of it, but I'm gonna tell you the truth. I remember before I was born, flying through space, seeing stars, planets, flying, and I was flying toward Earth, and then on my way to be born. Then it goes, you know, then things go blank, and then I start remembering when I'm about 3 or 4 years old. But I remember flying before my birth. Am I?
Well, no, no, you're not by yourself in that either. You're not.
Okay. I remember.
Some people have actual, like me. I remember before I could walk. I remember every conversation, everything. Right. I don't remember being born, but some people remember being in the womb. They do.
I say
they remember what they
possible.
were.
Yeah.
They remember, and some people remember things before that. Now, why is so funny when you say flying through the stars, right?
Yes.
Because why would a bunch of people remember that same thing?
I don't know.
That don't know each other. These are not people looking for fame or anything.
No, I've never said this publicly.
These are right. You have, and some people remember a road. Now, nobody wrote this down, but I can guarantee some of your listeners have this. I didn't read this from a book. I just know this. There's a road that some people have found themselves walking on.
Yeah.
And from this road, they could see people and houses. And from there, they would choose their family. That's where that ideology comes from. Did they, you know, are people choosing their families? If you look at some of the books that people have written, they have dreamt about these things or had experiences with these things, and they believe that's the way it works, right?
Wow.
And so reincarnation, that's genetic memory.
Yeah.
It's not really reincarnation,
really
it's genetic memory.
So, so when I was flying through space coming, was that my soul?
But you exist, all of us existed intact before we ever came to Earth in the first place.
Yeah, because we're a soul, we're a living soul, right? I mean,
right, which means the thing we just weren't individuals, right?
Yeah.
So this experience in life is really doing what we really do, but we all came from that source. We all came from the living God, but we just were not individuals.
I get it.
I like this one thing that. In life, the Lord says, I place before you darkness and light. So in life, we always find ourselves, everything is a choice we have to choose from. Yes. It never fails. We have to choose from the just way or the unjust way. And everything that we do, it never, ever fails. But anybody from the light, I know this about it, even the most rotten people that I've ever seen, Pastor Paul, when they find out that whatever they're doing is sin, they want nothing to do with it. That's the righteous.
That is right.
When a person finds out something is sin, they want nothing to do with it. And they say, no, that's it for me. I'm done with this. When they find the impact of it got promised that Jesus gave. I love that fact.
I'm going to read this scripture. Here's Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. So in other words, I was already created, and I was a soul waiting to be put into a body, and God had already created me, and he was already creating the body I was going to go into, and he ordained me to be. In other words, what I'm saying is every person is created by God, made a living soul, and God has a divine plan for every person if they just follow.
Yes. You know what, Pastor Paul, you can call me crazy on this one, but I saw the reason why we're here. I saw it, and I wrote it's a booklet about it. It's held. It's not published yet. It's just being held. It's protected and all that. But I saw the reason we're here. It is so incredibly simple. And then through experiences, it was back because one time in an experience, I saw this woman cry. She had lost her kids and she was blaming everybody for everything that went wrong. And I remember feeling just you can only perceive truth. And I said, why? I said, don't waste your time crying on this. This is not the reason. This has nothing to do with why you're here. Of course, that person couldn't hear me, but I could see when I backed off, I saw millions of people doing this, blaming something for everything that happened in their lives, and that's not the reason they're here.
That's very good.
But I saw it, and I searched the Bible to see if it was. It's amazing.
Mike, you still with me?
Nope.
Mike, where'd you go? Did we get into the unknown here? Mike from around the world? Mike, are you out there? We've lost him. He's going to tell me the time of the harvest. Wait. Mike! Mike, come back! No! Mike! Come back! Come back! The TSA? Or did the...
Your call has been forwarded.
Oh, no. So, that might be all. Mike was going to explain the time of the harvest.
Wow.
But let's give him just a couple seconds. Aha. Are you back?
What happened?
I don't know. I don't know if we went somewhere we're not supposed to go. Can we go to the time of the harvest? Because we're running.
Yeah, let's go to the time of the harvest. Okay, here it is. Here's the big one, right?
Okay.
Here it is. We know, basketball, you report every single day how wicked things are getting in the world, right? How bad things are getting.
Yeah.
Everybody out there, I hear comments every day. People say they're ready to go home. This world is dark, this, that, and the other. I'm going to read this one thing. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get ye down, for the press is full, the fats overflow, for their wickedness is great.
Revelation, I think it's 14. Sure.
In 3 places, that one right there was you can find that Revelation, but this was in Joel 3.
Okay.
The other one's in a Psalm, and one is in a proverb where the wickedness marks the harvest. So we know that we report every single day how bad this world is getting. It's not getting better, it's getting worse. We hope for a better world, but it's getting worse.
Yes.
When wickedness is at its height, and I believe in the Proverbs it says the brutish man does not understand, but when the wickedness flourishes in the earth like grass, it is because it's going to be destroyed forever. So then the wickedness, the level of wickedness, marks the timing of the harvest.
Okay.
And we live in a very wicked world.
Which means we're close to the harvest.
That's right. Because when the wickedness is great in the earth, the angels are commanded to go and harvest the earth.
Yes, they are. They're told to put the sickle in and go get the harvest. And it's not talking. Right. There's 2 harvests. Like one's the harvest of the righteous, but one is the harvest of the wicked.
This is Joel 3:13. Okay. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get ye down, for the press is full, the fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. And it also tells us something, that this evil that we see on earth is going to build and compound. It will. But we're also sent to this. But there's a scripture: God will never place anything upon us beyond that which we can bear. So then if we're put this time, number one, we're able to handle everything. Number 2, we're not meant to be depressed all the way to the end. We're not meant to be, smashed up and defeated people all the way to the end. We're meant to carry the gospel of Jesus Christ. The gospel means good news of Jesus Christ. Amen. If you carry good news, you don't do so with a frown. You do so with sobriety and with strength and with hope, but not with a frown. So it means that it's almost like an element wants people grumpy at this time. Right?
Yeah,
it wants them in this militant mode. No, we have a hope that the world does not have, and that contrast is becoming quite clear now, because the world is hopeless, but we have a hope. We have the gospel. The gospel is that good news. The good news is that we had been washed from everything that would have separated us from the living God. It's been washed away through the blood of the Lamb. The world does not have that message, so they try to live forever. We won't live forever. I got news for everybody. They will be leaving this earth. They're going home.
Yes. Amen.
So they might want to think about that. They're going home. And you know what a lot of people say, well, the rapture may not be, it doesn't matter about the rapture. You're going home.
You're going home.
Right? You're going home. If we're alive at the time, then the word of God will surely take place. And those who are alive are going to be called up to be with him in the clouds forever. But if we're going home regardless,
amen.
We're most of us are more than halfway there. So they might want to prepare in truth to get ready to go home, to straighten up every single corner they can straighten up, to make sure everything is lined down in their lives. Because this is our one-shot deal, and they're going home.
Amen.
And that harvest will most certainly, if they can't see that harvest is coming.
Because of the
and quickly. Quickly.
Yeah.
That's right.
And because
that marks the harvest.
That's right.
That marks the time.
Right.
That's one of the greatest signs, without even saying it's a sign. The wickedness in the world, something that everybody can see, talk about, and they know it already.
Yeah.
And it's coming quick.
You hear people say all the time, I can't believe this is going on. You know, I can't believe that it's gotten this bad. We must be
marks the harvest.
Yeah, it's marking the harvest.
Mm-hmm.
We're very close. And
Absolutely.
so you got to make sure that you got your sins washed in the blood, like you said, Mike, and that you're living for God, and you are praying and you're trusting God, and you just get ready. Okay, just get ready, because the harvest is coming.
It's coming.
And we're getting ready to leave this world, and I'm ready.
It's coming.
Amen.
It's coming.
But not everybody's ready. And that's why we're having this broadcast tonight. This is why we're talking about it. Because we are running out of time. The wickedness is getting worse. The Bible says, because iniquity abounds, the love of many will wax cold. I mean, that's today. No doubt about it. Mike, thank you for breaking it down for us. And thank you for.
Okay, guys. Good night. God bless.
Tonight. Some great stuff, great information. I got to go back and listen to it again. That's how good it is. I appreciate you coming on. And